Warrior Lore. Chapter 700, Vaulting Dragon King. Chapter 700, Vaulting Dragon King. Proofreader, Papatonks. A dragon is the strongest and toughest creature. Your demonic dragon is very weird and can handle my flames, but it's still too soft. Let me show you how a true dragon should be. With a shout, Yilin's signs came to an end. Reveal your brutality, decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King, scale-shedding. Roar. A brutal roar came from his dragon, and it released a blinding golden light. As it shook, it threw off the demonic dragon. The demonic dragon had no chance to latch on again as the golden dragon's scales bristled and shot like tiny blades at the demonic dragon. Those scales contained scorching flames that could burn anything. Zhuofan's eyes narrowed, and he had a very bad feeling. Without any hesitation, based on his double lives intuition, he had his soul move away. It proved to be too late as the scales fell from the golden dragon like rain, hitting the demonic dragon fully and sending its golden flames right into its body. The demonic dragon had no time to absorb them as they instantly detonated. The violent power and the searing flames left the demonic dragon to jerk from pain and torment. Zhuofan was also assaulted by the pain in his mind. Yilin snickered, getting his dragon free from the demonic dragon and ordering it to claw the other's skull. To attack it from two fronts, the pitch-black aura on the demonic dragon scattered from the explosions and its ears were deafened by it, making the claw that came take it. By surprise grinning, Yilin saw his dragon clawing the demonic dragon's face as if he was slapping Zhuofan's. Ha ha ha, even if your dragon can handle my golden flames, it's too soft. A dragon should be strong and tough. That dragon you got by meshing up all kinds of sundries are no match for pure perfection. My dragon has you beat in power alone. You're no match to me, even in soul. Yilin had a crazed look in his eyes as he cackled. The audience saw Zhuofan just make a comeback yet was being pushed back the next second. Burning his last hope, exalted double dragons shook their heads. They were shocked by Zhuofan's tactic, but they had to admit Yilin's dragon soul was far more complete in its adaptation. Simply perfect. Zhuofan's scarlet dragon and demonic dragon each had their strong suit, but it had heaps of weaknesses as well. It was very easy for them to be routed and pushed back, unless the exalted seemed to recall something and quickly denied it. Like that will ever happen. A twice-altered soul is already miraculous enough, so how can two different forces? Moreover, they just don't fit. It's impossible. Zhuofan had given his all in this fight, but it still was not enough. If he could fuse those two variants, Sword God Sect Xie Tianshang said when Tao shook his head on the spot, that's downright impossible. I have no idea how that demonic dragon even came to be, but what is certain is that it is an extreme Yin. Yin is soft, and virtue can restrain the golden flames just how our soft sword can handle attacks. However, that scarlet dragon is extremely brutal and hard. While Yin and Yang can engender each other, they can also repel one another. If these two dragons are united, it will become unlike anything in this world. Nothing could stop it, but if they clash, the result will only harm oneself. That's why Brothers' dragon soul can take both Yin and Yang forms. This is truly amazing in itself. If he were to fuse them, their engendering is still not enough. Even if he does, it might not be Yilin's match because he is still lacking. Still? Xie Tianshang raised an eyebrow when Tao spoke with a stern face. A dragon's brutality. A dragon is extremely strong and hard, but Yilin's dragon soul is also a flame dragon. Fire is very explosive, and once attacked it would rain havoc. Brothers' dragon soul lacked in this department on both accounts. His attacks just don't make the cut while his defenses are still too weak to take those blows, as you saw from the scale shedding. However, as he was commenting on the fight, a roar came from within the screen that startled everyone. Zhuofan's dragon soul was shifting again, back to his scarlet form. It flashed its claws and stopped the golden dragon's attacks. With a roar of fury, it then smashed the other's head with a claw and threw it to the ground. Almighty Scarlet Dragon King was truly a king in terms of raw power. Not even the golden dragon could match it. As for hardness, he was among the best. The audience once again clamored in excitement. Zhuofan used the two variations to fight back, but then the golden dragon twisted and flicked its tail, Striking the scarlet dragon with its golden scales, the scarlet dragon whipped its own tail to protect its head. As the explosions echoed, it still wailed. Its tough scales were falling from the relentless assault, its power waning from the wounds. Xie Tianshang now understood what Wen Tao meant by brutal. Zhuo Fan's variations could not stop Yi Lin's scale shedding against such an explosive attack. Zhuo Fan could do nothing. The experts noticed it as well. Even with the two forms of dragon soul, Zhuo Fan could not get out of that impasse. Everyone lamented, and the exalted gave the judge a look to get to it and calling it off. Shaking, Zhuo Fan bled from the mouth, but he did not mind it. He had the almighty Scarlet Dragon King turn back into heaven-devouring demonic Dragon King to absorb the remaining golden flames on its body. Finally breathing easier, he knew the two forms were not enough. Zhuo Fan, it's the end of the line for you. Your variations can't take my dragon. A second rate is a second rate. How can it ever match a perfect dragon soul? Ha ha ha. Yi Lin looked at Zhuo Fan with pride, filled with confidence. The golden dragon was shaking its tail as well, giving the black dragon a look of disdain. Zhuo Fan sneered. He never was one to take to others showing off, especially in his face. So he scratched his nose and said, "Brat, enough with the patronizing, or you'll be sorry. It's not over until it's over." Still trying to fight the inevitable? Humph, it's your funeral. I'm being serious when I tell you that I haven't gone all out, or you'd be dead. You're not the only one. When I go crazy, I can't control myself. Zhuo Fan snickered. Yi Lin's face twitched. Are you calling me lunatic? Humph, we'll just see who goes crazy first. Decimating golden flame is called decimating because it can burn the heavens. Proceed at your own risk. You might collapse the heavens by burning them, but I will hold them up. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan had a creepy grin. Yi Lin's brow twitched, finding it odd. What's got this punk so confident when his two dragon souls are useless? He didn't get to find an answer as Zhuo Fan's dragon soul turned into almighty Scarlet Dragon King as it soared higher and higher. Yi Lin mocked. You're going up even as you're about to lose? This time you won't get to change your dragon soul. I won't let you. Scale shedding. His dragon sent golden scales like rain upon the Scarlet Dragon. Only this time, the Scarlet Dragon did not dodge, and it was not releasing black energy to stop it either. Everyone was stunned. Was Zhuo Fan going to make the Scarlet Dragon face the scales head-on? That's suicide. It won't help you at all. But as the golden scales approached, the red glow on the Scarlet Dragon dimmed and its body was see-through. The huge dragon then lit up in an azure flame, engulfing its body. It went on like this, like an azure fire dragon, dragon soul variant, vaulting Dragon King. Zhuo Fan's hand made some new signs as he shouted. Chapter 701, 4 Dragon King Variants. Chapter 701, 4 Dragon King Variants. Proofreader, Papatonks. He's changing again. Everyone was becoming stone statues with how often they got stunned by Zhuo Fan's skills. First, the mere fact there were 2 variations of the same soul was incomprehensible. And now they found out there was a third one as well. All around was nothing but gasping and slack jaws. Just what on earth is this kid's cultivation method and path to end up with 3 variations? They had no way of knowing Zhuo Fan's demon transformation art contained everything in existence. The azure flame was a true mediator between yin and yang, holding every aspect of everything in this world. It fits everything to perfection, not causing a single conflict. So to say Zhuo Fan had 3 variations was a gross understatement. He could go for hundreds if he wanted to. As for Yi Lin, who received a dragon ancestor's inheritance, his soul's path ended at decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King. Anything deviating from it was impossible. Wen Tao's soul was the gentle sword, overcoming strength with softness. If he changed his sword soul into a greatsword, it just did not fit his path. Thus impossible to achieve it. It was because Zhuo Fan's cultivation method conformed to all paths, coming from the 9 Serenities Emperor himself. He focused all his knowledge on making it, allowing him to go on without having disharmony among the wide array of skills he got from all those experts. It was also why he failed to grasp a deeper understanding of Tao. It was just like he concluded. While Yi Lin and the others were plumbing the depths of Tao, he was taking in all its broadness. This fight was no different. No one knew better about being a sacred beast inheritor than Yi Lin. The almighty Scarlet Dragon King, a sacred beast inheritance variant, was not inferior to decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King at all. It was just that Zhua Fan's knowledge of Qilin's power was lacking and could not showcase its true might, while on the opposite side, Zhua Fan could use the shifts in the soul to compensate for his shortcomings. For this particular instance, he needed something to curb the brutality of that raging fire, and who better than the vaulting Dragon King, in harmony with all things. Roar! The Azure Dragon showed no fear beneath the hail of thousands of burning scales. It even charged on excitedly. The eyes of the audience widened, and their hearts skipped with worry that the Azure Dragon would meet the same fate as the other two, but then they watched in shock as the scales went right into the Azure Dragon. They exploded, and then the golden flames released a golden flash covered in azure flames to soothe its savagery, turning it into azure flames. At the end, the people went crazy when the savage scales entered the Azure Dragon. To see them turned into Azure Dragon's power, whose flames were burning stronger now, the Azure Dragon roared to mock the Golden Dragon as it kept charging. Is this vaulting Kunpeng's chaos flame? Yi Lin cried out in shock. Master said that of the 5 great sacred beasts who harnessed primal chaos power, only 2 wielded divine flames. One was he, decimating dragon ancestor, wielder of a fierce flame, the decimating golden flame that can destroy everything, and the other was the head of the 5 great sacred beasts, vaulting Kunpeng, wielder of the gentle flame, chaos flame of creation. The flames also earned them their titles. The fierce flame destroyed, and the gentle flame created. The 5 great sacred beasts can bring heaven down, and the gentle flame can hold it up. One can say they are yin and yang, engendering and clashing with each other. The only thing that can soothe the brutality of the strongest fierce flame can only be the strongest gentle flame. I just can't believe it's on him. Does vaulting Kunpeng have his back? Then whose disciple is he? Qilin's or Kunpeng's? Yi Lin found Zhua Fan as one huge enigma, impossible to unravel. He didn't know which sacred beast's inheritance he got. Zhua Fan hardly ever displayed the azure flame to anyone. Then there was the mighty Qilin arm he relied on the most that got Yi Lin to side with him, being a Qilin disciple. As for the purple lightning, it had to be because he got drowned in it in that canyon. It didn't count. Why else would his use of it look so clumsy? So, after careful analysis, he was certain that Zhua Fan was a Qilin disciple, wasting a power he was unfamiliar with. Glossing over the melee battle, there was no way he could be defeated in a soul battle. Now he found out that all of this was wrong. Zhua Fan finally revealed the power that could contain his own. The Chaos Flame changed the Heaven Dragon Soul into Vaulting Dragon King in complete opposition to his decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King. If you only consider the power's character, yes, but once you add them to a Dragon Soul. Yi Lin's eyes flashed, and he no longer sat still as before. Having discovered Zhua Fan's nature, he ordered his Golden Dragon to charge at the Azure Dragon for an attack. Humph! The Azure Flame and the Golden Flame are against one another, but when it comes to Dragon Souls, strongest and hardest is the way to go. You really think that you can overcome my fierce flame's strength by using that gentle flame on the Dragon Soul? Yi Lin glared at Zhua Fan and roared, grinning. Zhua Fan knew from the start where he stood and had never had any certainty he would win. Now though, he sneered. Having found all he wanted to know, this proved that Zhua Fan's tactic worked. The punk is anxious. All that's left is to go all out. Showing a creepy smile, Zhua Fan taunted. Haven't you heard of overcoming hardness with softness? Are you sure your fierce flame golden dragon can beat my gentle flame azure dragon? Without a doubt, Yi Lin raised his head as he declared. A dragon is tough and strong. No matter how opposing are our 2 flames, when it comes down to it, my golden dragon will trump yours. Yi Lin made a sign, and the golden dragon roared as his body exploded in golden flames. In a blink, it was on the Azure Dragon, bearing its claws. Bam! The golden dragon claw struck the Azure Dragon's spine. The berserk golden flame charged into the Azure Flame, burning the Azure Dragon's back. Yet the Azure Flame quickly shifted and wrapped around the golden flame, swallowing in a blink of an eye. That did nothing to stop the mighty and hard claw from making the Azure Dragon's spine creak and cry out. Zhua Fan's brow hardened as he felt a stab of pain in his mind. He chose to clench his teeth and bear it. Seeing his moment was here, His eyes flashed and sent the azure dragon to claw the golden dragon. Now that it was wide open, Yi Lin mocked, "Useless. The azure dragon with the gentle flame is good for defense, not attack. This claw won't harm my dragon at all." "I don't think so." Zhuo Fan grinned, his eyes glinting evilly. A flash of red appeared on the dragon's soul. Yi Lin expected it as he sneered, "I knew you would change back to almighty Scarlet Dragon King. Only the Scarlet Dragon can really attack among all your variations. Well, too bad he only has strength. In a soul battle, power is the last resort. At most, it will only push my dragon back and not harm it. When did I say I had only 3? Cutting him off, Zhuo Fan's evil grin was on full display. A rumble echoed in everyone's ears, a prelude to the shocking scene that came. The decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King's belly was run through by a dragon claw, throwing spiritual energy everywhere. Yi Lin shook, and his eyes bugged out in shock. Blood flowed from his mouth and dripped onto the ground, but it still couldn't lift the confusion in his eyes. How is this possible? Logically, those 3 dragons can't harm my dragon. Yi Lin's brow shook. He turned his stiff head around to see the golden dragon with a huge body, unlike any of the 3 variants he had seen before. It was covered in purple lightning. The crackle of thunder rumbled each time it streaked its body. Its sharp claw flickered purple as it came out of the golden dragon's other side. That's heaven-crushing Phoenix's berserk purple lightning. Yi Lin's eyes shook, recalling having seen the purple lightning on Zhuo Fan. Since he got 3 types of dragon souls, what stopped him from having one with purple lightning as well? But he got careless when he was focused on dealing with the azure flame. Zhuo Fan could read him like a book and sighed. "Finally nailed you." "What do you mean?" Yi Lin wore a mask of confusion. Zhuo Fan chuckled, in no hurry to reply. He pointed at the purple dragon and took his time. "Dragon Soul variant, Heaven-Crushing Dragon King. It's the only one that can do some damage to you. So before I could use it, I had to make you forget it ever existed." Yi Lin shook as it dawned on him. The blood leaked from his mouth, bloodening his shocked face. "You're telling me everything so far has been to lead me into this trap?" Wu Qingqiu was also shocked. Damn it, he's been duped. Chapter 702, Brutalized. Chapter 702, Brutalized. Proofreader, Papatonks. Senior brother. "What did you say?" a disciple asked. Confused, Wu Qingqiu frowned and pondered before sighing. "I'm not too clear either, but from what I see of the last strike, I have a vague feeling Zhuo Fan had been stringing junior brother along." The disciples were startled. Wu Qingqiu continued, "Look at Zhuo Fan's 4 dragon souls. Neither of them can stand up to junior brother. But in the end, his dragon soul ended up heavily wounded. Don't you find it odd? It's been obvious so far that Zhuo Fan had been on the ropes all along." "Yeah, did that punk blindside him?" one shouted. Wu Qingqiu sighed. "Even if he did, he needed perfect timing. This timing was either when the opponent was the most careless, or if he created it himself. Zhuo Fan likely chose the latter." "How can you be sure?" "Based on Zhuo Fan's purple dragon's claw attack. He grasped it perfectly to turn the fight around. I find it hard to believe a true expert like junior brother would be so careless as to give his opponent such an opening to exploit. That is why he was made to play along with the others' tunes." Wu Qingqiu frowned. "But when exactly did all of this start? I just can't see it." There were so many people just as shocked as he was. Zhuo Fan flipped the table a bit too fast, even by their standards. He had been stomped at every turn till now. However, a few crafty old foxes around saw through it. So young, but not just strong but also cunning. Even we were duped by his act and thought he couldn't win. Exalted He Ren held his beard and glanced at Bai Mei. "Old-timer, see that? Yeah, 4 dragon souls paving the way to success." Exalted Bai Mei nodded, his eyes flashing. The Scarlet Dragon was first taken out to test the Golden Dragon's power. The second variant was to lower the Golden Flame's threat and lay the groundwork for the coup de grace. The third variant was bait. The Azure Dragon was in direct opposition to the Golden Dragon King, and since it was weak in direct battle, it was the perfect cover to get him close. And to attack the Azure Flame and wound his opponent, the Golden Dragon used all its golden flame to strike the Azure Dragon's flames within it, but it also left itself wide open for an attack. Exalted He Ran finished. Exalted by Mei nodded. All of this had been prepared in advance. Yilin revealed an opening in the end because Zhuo Fan's 3 variants left a huge impression on him, causing him to lower his guard. The Demonic Dragon and Azure Dragon had weak attacks, with only the Scarlet Dragon strong but not explosive enough. It was the only one that could have attacked him. But who would have thought the real killer move was yet to come? I don't find this purple dragon impressive at all, but the purple lightning is savagely brutal, just like the golden flame. But Zhuo Fan had yet to train it to its peak, or at least stand up to the golden flame. Yilin just had to leave a bit of golden flame around his body, and the purple dragon would have failed. However, hadn't Zhuo Fan done everything to get him to lower the golden flame guard? Exalted He Ran sighed, especially that Azure Dragon. Its defense is the best, but it had no power to attack. It's like a 3-year-old fiddling with a golden bauble surrounded by 2 bodyguards with 1 arm and 1 leg. Any self-respecting thug wouldn't be caught dead missing such an obvious easy target. He'd go as far as ignoring the crippled bodyguards as he went for that bauble with a blade out. By Mei's side, old-timer, that's a bit crude. Being confident of victory, Yilin fell for Zhuo Fan's trap. If he had been cool-headed, the victory might have been his. A shame. What? The world doesn't lack people yearning for a win. If you were to see your adversary removing your advantages one step at a time, wouldn't you go for the kill when you find the best chance show itself? Exalted He Ran raised an eyebrow. Exalted by Mei chuckled. It's all due to that weird kid Zhuo Fan's twisted mind. Yilin is stronger than him, but fails in terms of mentality. This battle was like a spider biting at its prey until it fell over. You can't guard against something like that. Exalted He Ran gave an understanding nod. The kid has his path and heart. His future's going to be bright. The western lands are going to change. In the little valley, Danqing Shun watched the fight clearly and nodded, ha ha ha. I bet those 2 coots could tell how the soul battle would turn, yet they never would have thought this outcome had been set up ever since the melee. Did you really think I couldn't beat you in melee? Zhuo Fan looked at Yilin with a smug look. Yilin glared at Zhuo Fan, his heart in shock. You're telling me the whole thing was staged? Zhuo Fan shrugged. Fine. I guess I lost the melee. I can't beat you there. Yilin's face twitched as he glared. Are you toying with me? However, while I had been prepared to lose in that aspect, that didn't mean I liked it. Zhuo Fan squinted and showed a crafty look. An ever-winning general isn't always victorious because he never lost, but because he turns defeat into victory. You're the dragon ancestor's disciple, a sacred beast priding itself on its strong body. Since you're his disciple, your body can't be any weaker. You got its entire inheritance, while I only got bits and pieces from a Qilin. It was obvious melee was lost to me, though the loss had its perks. Sacred beasts are hugely arrogant, and you're not far off either. You had let the melee win get to your head, thus giving me the advantage. Moreover, when you beat me in melee, you already thought you had crushed my strongest form and were sure of victory. This led to being careless in the soul battle, my second advantage. As for the third, when you used the golden flame in melee, it gave me time to analyze it and set the best way to fight you in soul. Yilin shook, staring at Zhuo Fan's evil grin in complete stupefaction. He never thought Zhuo Fan would be so invested in this fight that he took everything into account. His master never taught him that. Master only said that the winner lorded over the loser, and that power was everything. What could possibly be more important in a fight than one's strength? Reality showed his master was just a wild beast. Their fights were crude and simple, while humans used their brains. He was so strong that no one could have played him. Adding to that, he had never met someone as crafty as this prick among the simple people of the Ultimate Clarity Sect. That was how he ended up like this now that he met Zhuo Fan, lording over him with power, but not in brains as well, being duped all the way. He only realized it when he fell for it. So a simple fight has so many aspects when humans are involved. The human world is so complicated. Later, you still held me in contempt when you were stronger than me, to the point you went easy. Why? Because you overlooked my purple lightning. Zhuo Fan continued, while it's still fairly weak, it's not useless either. As the 3 dragon souls were laid to bear, and you defeated them one by one, stroking your ego and startling you. The sudden mood changes made you forget my purple lightning. Making you rush was part of the plan, like insurance. In case you were paranoid to the extreme, and this attack of mine went bust since I stood no chance against you in a prolonged battle. But now, ha ha, didn't I tell you, punk, that you're too self-righteous? Zhua Fan made a sign, and the purple dragon flicked its claw, pulling it out of the golden dragon's body before letting purple lightning flash and sink into its chest again. Yilin cried out. His soul was already damaged. If this one hit, he would be a goner, so he had the golden flame cover its body and defend against the purple lightning attack. The purple lightning struck the flames, but fizzled out. This showed Zhua Fan's purple lightning wasn't up to par. Yilin felt like crying. He shouldn't have been so eager to win and let himself suffer for it. Even if he had Zhua Fan beaten to a pulp, he still couldn't hurt him with 4 rubbish dragons. But now, that same rubbish did him, and the golden dragon was wrapped in golden flames. So the purple dragon turned into the demonic one and bit down to suck the flames right out of it. When the golden dragon shot its scales in defense, the other just turned into an azure dragon to cancel the attack. Then it changed into a scarlet dragon as it flicked its tail and sent the golden dragon flying. This wouldn't have hurt, but since he was so heavily wounded, it added insult to the injury. The scarlet dragon aimed for its wound as it clawed at him. Even if its claws didn't harm the golden dragon, the heavy impact went deep into the wound and made the whole affair highly unsettling. Yilin had to spit blood every time because of it. The pain in his head got so bad he felt it would explode. 4 rubbish dragon souls were ganging up on a perfect heaven dragon soul. The decimating dragon ancestor would have exploded in anger if he saw this. Chapter 703, Soul Harmony. Chapter 703, Soul Harmony. Proofreader, Papatonks. Bang. Those were the sounds of dragon souls clashing, though they weren't that intense. Just a one-sided beating. Decimating golden heaven dragon king was fatally wounded, leaving it at a severe disadvantage. The attacks of the scarlet dragon were shrugged off before. The other dragons couldn't do much against it. Even the most brutal purple dragon couldn't break its golden flame defense. To sum it up, no matter which of these 4 dragon souls attacked, none could threaten the golden dragon. However, after the purple dragon's sneak attack, it left a huge opening in its defenses. To the point, the scarlet dragon's attacks passed through and could deal some damage. The 4 dragon souls thus kept switching, the azure and demonic ones, for defense against the golden flames to put him in a position where any attack was useless. So when he stopped attacking, the scarlet dragon joined the fray, slamming into its wound. If he wanted to fight back again, the azure and black dragons would only be waiting for him. The strong azure flame could completely contain the brutality of the golden flames. Even if he went all out, it would only give the azure dragon a slight wound. Then it would turn into the purple dragon and send those savage purple lightning strikes when it was most vulnerable. This way, the golden dragon was stuck in a passive position. It was like how a big guy was having his arms and legs tied up and letting a bunch of brats try to beat him. Oh, but one of them was carrying a blade. He'd shiver every time he watched the blade approach, dodging as much as possible, but never attacking since there was a risk the blade would take his life. The purple lightning was the weakest of Zhua Fan's powers, making the purple dragon the weakest of his 4 dragons. But the threat remained regardless, to the point that the golden dragon feared another sneak attack and did not fight back. This way, he could only let Zhua Fan's 4 dragon souls rain claws and fangs on it as it was beaten repeatedly. The audience was gaping at the sudden turn of events. How come the mighty golden dragon tuned up to be like a scaredy cat? The people were excited, feeling life was a play because of how the positions could change so fast. The girls were even more shocked, buzzing about and pointing. Sister Qingcheng, what just happened? I don't get it. How did he get the upper hand? Air. Chu Qingcheng needed a few times to recover. She shook her head and gave a bright smile. I always thought I understood him, but I was wrong. I never thought that he'd win by using his weakness. Shui Ruahua's brow shook as she looked at Zhua Fan in shock. A true and capable man. Who would dare to even consider looking for victory among its faults? Humph. For Yilin to be defeated when he was at the top of his game, he must be a moron. Xin Xiaoyu spat in hatred. Sword God Sect saw the big turnaround and looked on in shock. When Tao held his head, Tianshang, your brother has opened my eyes. I always thought it was strength that made him a freak, but now I see what it means to be ever victorious. It's all about the mind. This is not a win gained through power, since those 4 dragon souls couldn't beat the golden dragon. Yet look at the golden dragon now, being beaten black and blue. Heavens, just how did he come up with such a strategy? Haha, what's so hard to believe? Haven't I been saying that he comes from a lowly third-rate clan all this time? Yet, in just 10 years, he got it to rule the empire. It's not just guts alone. He's been in constant danger as he schemed with the other sides. One wrong move, and it would be the end. He had dealt with many old foxes on his way too. Xia Tianshang smiled. Senior brother, you should know how cruel the vie for power in a kingdom is. It's not as simple as the competitions between sections. He also got the 3 greatest minds under him as well. This proves his mind is unlike anyone else's. Yi Lin might be an amazing genius that is stronger than him, but when it comes to schemes, no Sect's young master can defend against him. When Tao eyed him and then turned to look at Zhuo Fan, this was a big ploy all along. However, regardless of what it is, people would always lean on what they are best good at. I just can't believe he didn't scheme to win in melee and waited for when their souls were out. Such courage earned my respect. Who could have such confidence in him? The lone breach. 3 voices echoed out. 2 were the exalted, and the other was Dan Qing Shan. Their voices carried praises. Dan Qing Shan held his beard and was ready to go. The lone breach is a dangerous tactic. On a battlefield where the defensive position has its strongest defense, it caused them to neglect it, leaving fewer troops. It's always assumed the enemy would attack the weakest points in defense, so that's where the main force was placed. But experienced generals always do the opposite, concentrating all their forces on the lone point of the defenses, winning in a single blow and catching the opponent off guard. By the time he reacted, the battle was over. This requires courage and wisdom. Failure means disaster. Zhuo Fan did the same with Yi Lin. He stroked his ego for the soul battle and caught everyone by surprise when he went for the win. Ha ha ha, the brat is truly bold and cunning. The winner is settled, and now I can do what I came here to do. Dan Qing Shan was carefree, as if he had been fighting and left. However, a roar came from behind that caught everyone's attention. Zhuo Fan, one of us will stand on the other's shoulder to reach the peak, but that won't be you. Yi Lin roared and spewed blood as he did. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit, unwilling to give up, yet Zhuo Fan totally got him. The 2 were more or less sacred beast inheritors, so it stood to reason that it had some influence in their fight. In Yi Lin's case, the influence was greater as the dragon ancestor's disciple. Losing this battle means being in the other's allegiance. This was the way of the beast. It will leave a huge scar in one's mind that he did not want to have. Zhuo Fan was the same. He didn't want his mind to become burdened and stay in Yi Lin's shadow. It would severely impede his pursuit of Tao, so the 2 had entered a stalemate. Grinning evilly, Zhuo Fan made a sign, and the 4 dragon souls constantly shifted, speeding up the beating of the golden dragon. He wanted to get it over with fast. Yet he was stalling with his speech as he taunted, "Humph, the winner is settled. Give up. If Dragon Ancestor knew you lost to me, an inheritor of 3 sacred beasts, he'd understand it too. Not even he can fight 3 alone." Bullshit. Sacred beasts are arrogant. Master won't bat an eye, even if he were to fight 4 by himself. Yi Lin roared. Zhuo Fan grinned. A wise man submits to circumstances. In a sacred beast battle of 4 versus 1, defeat is obvious. Your master must be a fool if he fought in those circumstances. Your master's the fool, Yi Lin cursed back at this time. Zhuo Fan's almighty Scarlet Dragon King once again whipped its tail right on the golden dragon's wound and made it shudder. Yi Lin spat blood again and could hardly keep going. Zhuo Fan snickered and kept making signs while taunting. Just then, Wu Qingqiu noticed something and shouted, "Junior brother, don't let him get to you. If you have a way to strike, now's the time. He's stalling. Do it now before it's too late." "I've been duped again." Startled, Yi Lin glared at Zhuo Fan and spat. "Zhuo Fan, you wretched scumbag, you dare play me again? Are you even a sacred beast inheritor? I already told you, we're humans. In war, there's also deception. Haven't your elders ever told you before setting out that you need to use both your fists and your brain in a brawl? Fan raised a taunting eyebrow. Yilin was furious and about to curse, but Wu Qingqiu's warning woke him up again, gnashing his teeth. Yilin stomped and flew 100 meters back. He had the golden dragon flick its tail and get away as well. Yilin's face twitched as he stared at Fan in rage. Let me show you how a real sacred beast disciple fights. Strength is everything. I fear none of your petty tricks. Yilin made a sign and shouted, Soul Origin, Golden Dragon Transformation, Soul Harmony. Chapter 704, Flawless. Chapter 704, Flawless. Proofreader, Papatonks. Roar. The golden dragon coiled in the air around Yilin. The golden flames burned hotter, and yet faded with time. The golden dragon's huge bulk shrank as it drew closer to Yilin. But the dragon did not enter his mind. Instead, it focused on his body, blending with his flesh and spreading through every cell with a fashionable golden flame explosion. Yilin's body was covered in a thick dragon scale armor, each individual scale containing the volatile and destructive golden flame. A mere flick of the wrist, and the effect was like the golden dragon whipping his tail, sending a rush of superheated air storming everywhere. Whether it met the mountains, plants, or wildlife, they were all decimated. This can't be. Fan was shocked to the core. The Exalted showed the same reaction as they jumped to their feet. This is something only a soul harmony stage expert can do, harmonizing body and soul. The soul harmony stage was what came after the ethereal stage. It allowed one to focus their soul power into their flesh, for soul and body to become one. The body would thus become a natural defense of the soul, keeping it from harm. In other words, while Yilin's soul was greatly damaged and could no longer fight, by combining it with his body, his soul power could be fully displayed. His body would also protect it from any more harm, completely nulling the effect of Fan's sneak attack. Through the use of the purple dragon, Yilin was back to when his soul was in its best shape. Moreover, since the soul and body were now one, Yilin's soul and body power combined to make him even stronger. This outcome left Fan frowning once more, crying out loud, am I going to fail right at the end? We're back where we started. No, it's worse actually, far worse. Fan clenched his fists and gnashed his teeth. The others gasped in shock at the incredible development. What's going on? An ethereal stage expert can use a soul harmony stage's ability? This is insane. Then again, if one would take a simple look at Fan, in the radiant stage, one would see him using his soul as an ethereal stage expert. Would gods, these people are aberrations, one more than the other. We're the normal ones here, yet we can't hold a candle to them. Ugh, it pisses me off. Only Chu Qingqing and the girls were worried for Fan. Seeing the tables turned once more, they held their deep gazes on his figure, hoping for the best. Ha ha ha. Didn't see that coming, did you? A sacred beast's body is the best, and it becomes flawless when the soul harmonizes with it. As the dragon ancestor's disciple, this soul harmony skill comes naturally. Yilin mocked, seeing Fan's shaken face, and grinned. Now I'm a miniature version of the decimating dragon ancestor. Let's see you beat me now. Yilin shot for Fan, the powerful golden flames surging into a typhoon. Fan could feel the blistering heat before it reached him, practically cooking him alive. Fan squinted, and his face became stern. He made a sign and called the dragon soul to protect him. 100-meter-long savage dragon appeared before Fan. The scarlet glow was so strong it struck fear in the average man, containing unspeakable raw power. Roar. The almighty Scarlet Dragon King saw Yilin was coming and clawed at the tiny human. A great power pressed on Yilin's shoulder, but Yilin only huffed as he spat. A stream of golden flames covered the dragon. Even though it came from a tiny human in a flash, the golden flames spread and scorched the dragon until it wailed. Its attack had no chance of continuing because of it. Yilin laughed in contempt. Fan merely smirked, bearing through the piercing headache as he made a sign. The almighty Scarlet Dragon King turned into the heaven-devouring demonic Dragon King. The black aura around it swallowed the flames, and the pain vanished. Fan eased a breath as well, however. Yilin was not about to let all that bashing Fan put him through go with just a little singeing, now would he? And this demonic dragon only knew how to gulp down flames. Other than that, it was pretty much useless. So Yi Lin jumped in front of it and waved his hands, sending thousands of fire motes at it in the form of rain, scale shedding. Bang! The explosions didn't let up as the demonic dragon was bombarded under the heavy rain of attacks. It wailed in pain and twisted its body. Zhuofan shook and rushed to turn it into the vaulting Dragon King. The azure flames swallowed all the incoming golden scales and removed the danger, however. Yi Lin snickered now that the azure dragon was out. It was all this dragon's fault that pushed him into giving his all and leaving himself open to the purple dragon it had to suffer for its transgression. So to get his sweet vengeance and prove his limitless power to Zhuofan for the last time, Yi Lin used a different move. Yi Lin jumped above the azure dragon's head and punched down. All the golden flames were gathered in that tiny fist, leaving himself open again. Yi Lin, you dare? Zhuofan cried out threateningly. Yi Lin mocked. Just watch me. Go ahead. Use the purple dragon to attack me. Yi Lin's golden flamed fist smashed down just like the golden dragon claw attack from before. The powerful golden flames scattered the azure flames on the azure dragon, and it hit its spine, making it howl in pain as it took the entire blow. But soon, just like before, the azure dragon turned purple, and it clawed at Yi Lin's chest paw. The crack of thunder sounded, and Yi Lin's body was flung away, but not too far. Looking down at his chest and the singed area, he merely dusted it off as he taunted in a condescending tone. It didn't even tingle. Your purple lightning is so utterly weak. I just can't imagine how on earth you even got to hurt the golden dragon the first time. Zhuofan's brow shook, and he held his head as it felt like it was splitting. Yi Lin was different from before. The sneak attack worked last time because the golden dragon's defenses were down, while this time Yi Lin harmonized with his soul, making the body become a shield for the soul. In other words, Yi Lin was flawless. Nothing could harm him now unless, of course, by a powerful attack, while he could fight for longer against the battle-hungry Yi Lin, and the azure dragon could hold on for longer, but even then, he could not see how he could come on top. In this, he was facing a dead end unless he could breach that tough body of his. Squinting, Zhuofan thought, lucky yours truly comes prepared for anything. As for its effect, that remains to be seen. Zhuofan went right to it and made a different sign as he jumped on the huge dragon. Yi Lin started and wondered. Soul harmony too? However, Zhuofan was no Orthodox sacred beast inheritor. Soul harmony wasn't in his bag of tricks. With a flick of the tail, the azure dragon turned and darted through the air further and further away. Yi Lin froze in shock. What the hell? We're in the middle of something here, and he bails? How is he even a sacred beast inheritor? Then came Zhuofan's enervating taunt. Yi Lin, the time's almost up. We'll settle things next time. So that's why. The punk knows he can't fight, so he wants a draw. Yi Lin figured out his motive and exploded in rage. In a sacred beast battle, it was all about meeting power with power, not running away from it. You had me beaten around like a punching bag, but the second things look tough, you just take off? Do you think it's that easy? Yi Lin went right after him. Zhuofan snickered, revealing his evil smile. Ultimate clarity. Sect's disciples were worried. Senior brother Zhuofan is a bag full of dirty tricks. It can't be that junior brother's going to fall for another, can it? He shouldn't. Wu Qingqiu shook his head. Junior brother is now without weakness. His earlier trick won't work again, and the only way to defeat junior brother is by raw power. Chapter 705. I'll think about it later. Chapter 705. I'll think about it later. Proofreader. Papatonks. Whoosh. A huge figure shot through the air, straight for demon scheming Sect's disciples. The disciples saw Zhuofan was riding his dragon soul at them with the even more dreaded Yi Lin on his tail. They instantly panicked as they fled and cursed. There are so many other, better directions when choosing to escape. Why did you have to come to us? Why are you leading death straight at us? We didn't do anything to you to die at another's hand. They were all trying to escape the area as quickly as possible. Dan Shan was also cursing. What's the punk up to this time? Why is he moving the battle here? Does he know I'm hiding here and wants me to lend a hand? Damn kid, that will expose me. With no choice and raving in his mind about Zhuofan's rash behavior, he hid in a corner somewhere where the monitoring arrays couldn't find him. Only his mind was still cursing. Damn brat. I'll get you for this. Exalted Double Dragons looked lost. Exalted Hey Ran said, "Hey, old-timer, what's he up to this time?" In this particular situation, even we can see that Yi Lin has covered all bases. No matter what tricks he is pulling, only meeting his opponent head-on wouldn't produce any results. Ha ha ha, true. Exalted by Mei smiled. But did this kid ever follow common sense? Just like moments ago, how many here actually thought that the soul battle would go through another shift? Exalted Hey Ran smiled as well. You're right. All this kid does come as a shock. But now, Yi Lin has combined his soul and body. This fight has now changed from a soul battle to a melee one. You might as well say he's without flaw. What plan could the kid possibly have? Wait. Exalted by Mei gave him a look and then nodded. Everyone else thought the same thing, looking at Zhuo Fan in worry. Yi Lin, now having united his soul and body, his speed was off the charts, catching up to Zhuo Fan in seconds. Looking back with a frown, Zhuo Fan made a sign and had his huge right speed up. Ha ha ha, don't waste your breath. You're too slow. Yi Lin cackled, his eyes red. No matter what dirty little scheme you have cooked up, it's nothing my perfect form can't handle. The only way is to break my body to reach my soul. But you lost in melee to me already. Well, I wouldn't be so quick to judge. Zhuo Fan squinted, glancing back to see the thunder ring that got shaken off earlier was close. He smiled and shouted, "Shower!" Shriek. The piercing cry rang throughout the sky. Just as Zhuo Fan's mount passed the ring, with Yi Lin close behind him, purple thunder crackled out of it. A thunderbird 100 meters big and streaked by lightning appeared and slammed into Yi Lin when he had his guard down. What? Yi Lin's eyes widened in shock. He was more than familiar with the purple lightning. And this purple lightning's level was way above what Zhuo Fan used. This was a true thunder phoenix. Shattering thunderclaw. With a sharp shout, Shower flapped her wings, unleashing a deep rumble as she shot for Yi Lin. Then came the two sharp claws, flickering with deadly purple lightning, raking that chest covered in golden flames. It was a clash between the lightning above and the fire below. The two incredibly destructive forces clashed and unleashed a monumental explosion. Shower's claw came down on Yi Lin's hard scales, just like how a spear screeched in contact with a tough shield. However, since Shower's attack came out of the blue, he could not mount a defense, so two scales were pulled off. A patch of dark red was exposed on his chest. Yi Lin was taken over by severe pain and coughed blood as he was flung into the air. Everyone was dumbstruck, watching the Thunderbird gobsmacked. It displayed its grandeur as it flapped its wings with pride. Where did this spiritual beast come from? The Exalted were back on their feet again as they cried, "I knew it! Old-timer, see that?" Exalted Hey Ran said excitedly. The kid's plans go back from the start. He even had such a move taken into account. Exalted by Mei nodded. I doubted from the start. How did the kid lose his ring in the melee so easily? Now I see it was all planned out. He sent it flying to catch Yi Lin right when he least expected it. Which means one shouldn't get too confident, even if you're stronger. Today, Zhuo Fan had given Yi Lin a few harsh but good lessons. Wonder how many he'll remember. Ha ha ha. Exalted Hey Ran turned to the Thunderbird with a frown. But with Yi Lin's strength, no average spiritual beast could scratch him. Just what beast is this? Exalted by Mei pondered before he said, it's just a 6th-level spiritual beast but far stronger than one. Not even a spiritual beast in the 8th level might be its match. It truly is strange. And from the looks of it, it resembles a thunder skylark yet far stronger. Ha ha, like master, like spirit animal. Zhuo Fan is a monster in himself, so of course, he raises a monstrous spirit animal. He's truly something. Exalted Hey Ran smiled. Exalted by Mei chuckled, casting his admiring gaze on Zhuo Fan. If Yi Lin were an unseen cultivating talent, then Zhuo Fan would be an all-round talent, just as astounding. Unlike Yi Lin's amazing cultivation, Zhuo Fan's incredible and broadened use of skill left them more impressed. After all, strength can only get you so far. Senior brother, look, I just knew the punk had a trick in mind. A disciple of the Ultimate Clarity Sect pointed at Yi Lin's patch of red on his chest. Wu Qingqiu's face twitched as he hit the other guy's head. And your happy junior brother got duped? That's not what I meant. I just wanted to say that I saw through his trick. You call that seeing? It was just a wild guess. The punk set up so many tricks, even an idiot can see that junior brother, in his perfect state, will get taken in. Glaring at him, Wu Qingqiu sighed, however. Why did you brainless fools have to be right? The punk had another trick, and it worked. And where the hell did he find such a weird spiritual beast? There's no way the average spiritual beast can harm junior brother. The others frowned at Shower, also shocked by her display as Yilin's senior brothers. They knew how truly monstrous he was. They had seen many amazing spiritual beasts that couldn't even scratch him, so Yilin chose to overlook getting a pet himself, fighting all others with one without fear. But who'd have thought the day would come he'd suffer for it? It wasn't just about falling for another trick, but being hurt, so much as well he was hurt by a spiritual beast. Danqing Shan sighed at the flickering purple lights. This bird is out of this world, and so is its cunning handler. He finally understood that Shuofan didn't just look for a good chance to get rid of his ring. He had planned on coming up with a good excuse for the exalted double dragons as well, that of Sneak attacking Yilin. See what I did there? I used my ring to set up a trap. Danqing Shan running to the sacred mine and stealing Atlas Sword has nothing to do with me. I'm innocent. Ha ha ha, this kid's mind is truly frightening. Shaking his head, Danqing Shan sighed. He was even sure Zhuofan came up with this tactic the minute he mentioned using the storage ring to slip in here. He had to take his hat off at this one in the audience. Xie Tianshang and Chu Qingqing saw Qingcheng and felt relieved. They had seen Shower back in the esoteric debate. They felt closer to her because Zhuofan had brought her out again. She has grown so much over the years. Chu Qingqing looked with a soft gaze. Chapter 706, Reverse Scale. Chapter 706, Reverse Scale. Proofreader, Papatonks. Father, he's amazing. I clawed him with all I had, but only managed to take 2 scales off. There's no real damage either. Shower had flown back to Zhuofan in disappointment. Zhuofan's brow shook, his eyes grave, and this was from a sneak attack. For him not to have gotten a heavy wound even from that shows his body is tough beyond measure. No average spiritual beast can scratch him. Squinting, Zhuofan looked at Yilin, who had been flung into the air like a ragdoll after the attack. Yet his heart tensed. Shower's attack was his last ace. If even that failed, all that was left was to fight head-on. The worst option. From how he saw it, he knew fully well that would mean using a very dangerous move not just for his enemy, but for him too. It was the last thing he wanted to resort to after all. He only came up with it a short while ago, and didn't even have time to test it. Who? As the wind whistled, Yilin flipped into the air, spitting out blood on the ground. Whoosh. Yilin halted his movement and looked down at his chest and the exposed flesh. His face was a mask of rage, his eyes turning cruel. Ever since I inherited Master's drop of blood, having been implanted with one of his reverse scales to refine this golden dragon body, I have never been reduced to this state. Zhuofan, you're the first. Yilin glared back at Zhuofan, his eyes sometimes darting at Shower filled with bloodthirst. A dragon's scales are his dignity, and you just crushed it. Zhuofan, you've really gone and pissed me off. Zhuofan's heart shivered and now knew why this guy's body was so hard that even Shower could barely harm him. He's just like me, having received a part of a sacred beast's body. His Qilin arm came from soaring Qilin's leg. That was what gave him such power. Yilin's scale armor came from decimating dragon ancestors' reverse scale, which is harder than anything. Dragons were covered in scales, but only that particular one at the back of their necks, the reverse scale, was the toughest and the best to draw out its power. In simple terms, touching it was the same as crossing the line no one could tolerate, since he placed the reverse scale into him and forged his body with a drop of dragon blood. He had made him nigh indestructible. No wonder he was so tough in this state. This was how much he valued the scales. Zhuofan just got 2 of those pulled off. It was no different than slapping him hard on the face. No wonder he said that he was just like Zhuofan and only wanted to defeat Zhuofan. Now though, he really wanted him dead. Zhuofan's heart sank. Knowing this had stopped being a simple match to see who was stronger. Now his life was on the line. It was either one or the other. He wanted blood now, and if he won, my head will fly. So Zhuofan took a deep breath, and his eyes went cold. Shower, next to him, noticed the change in mood and grew serious as well. Silence fell between the two sides. One of death, they no longer cared about a winner now, only to kill. Startled, Wu Qingqiu seemed to have sensed the shift as well. What's going on? Why do I feel a thick killing intent? Does that mean junior brother really wants blood? Can't be, senior brother. That kid has always been carefree. He's been acting like he wants to kill but never going that far. Even when he was blindsided, he was only enraged. One disciple spoke confidently, but Wu Qingqiu waved him off. I've yet to see junior brother truly wishing to kill someone. Maybe because he never met anyone worthy enough to go that far. This time, though. Wu Qingqiu frowned, filled with worry as the team leader of the Ultimate Clarity Sect disciples. He did not want to see something happening to Yilin or Zhuofan in the fights seen the past few days. Everyone's style and character were laid bare, and everyone had an understanding of each other. They saw how they related, how similar they were. Just as Zhuofan wanted to go further as they did on their path. That was why he didn't want to see him fall. Seeing how this shifted into a death match, his heart was hesitating. The exalted double dragons noticed the shift thanks to their years of experience. This stillness is eerie. Exalted He Ran spoke heavily. Exalted by Mei nodded. The two kids are going for the kill. No matter what, these two are Western Land's future. They can't fall here. If it comes to it, we old-timers will have to violate Double Dragon Gatherings rules for the first time. It will be a severe blow to our impartial image, but worth it. Exalted He Ran nodded, but then sighed. Old-timer, when Shang went through so much trouble, we pacified the lands in the name of fairness. Have we turned soft, or have our principles changed? Exalted by Mei shook his head in silence. Exalted He Ran did not speak anymore. He knew well about the regret the two felt about how they handled Dan Qingshun's matter. It had festered for so long, and so much that they felt the fairness they had groomed all these years no longer looked as important. Shower, attack! Zhuofan shouted, and rode his dragon soul as he shot for Yilin. Shower shrieked alongside him. Zhuofan had run out of tricks and schemes. All that was left was to meet blow for blow. The two men and one bird clashed. Yilin, in his new form, was a mighty challenge. He didn't suffer even against Zhuofan and Shower. The screech and clanging of metal resounded as the dangerous shockwaves traveled everywhere. Yilin's body was harder than steel. No matter how hard Zhuofan hit, it didn't do much. At the same time, he was having a hard time resisting the incoming blows since he was combined in soul and body. All the strikes were packed with not just the Golden Dragon's power, but its searing flames as well. Zhuofan had no choice but to keep shifting his dragon soul. The four variations could take an occasional hit or two, but Zhuofan's soul was under threat once more. Fortunately, he had a helper, Shower. Being born out of purple lightning and imposing like the thunder phoenix, she would meet the golden flames without fear. The purple lightning rained down on Yilin's body and exploded when meeting the flames. Yilin had no choice but to shift some of them for defense. Shower's purple lightning was unlike the junk Zhuofan's purple dragon used. That was a power gained after being trained for years. It had reached such a degree, and Shower might just be the new thunder phoenix. Yilin could not ignore the power of a sixth heaven purple lightning and had to defend with his golden flames, thus giving Zhuofan some breathing room. Even so, the pair had yet to do any real damage ever since that last sneak attack. In fact, the two were being pushed back under Yilin's onslaught. The fight had entered a stalemate. Despite the obvious discrepancy in strength, the two sides had no way of defeating the other. For a while, Zhuofan knew he was at a disadvantage, but still kept his cool. He knew the time was almost up, and the fight would be judged as a draw. While he wanted to win, he was not that desperate. He knew Yilin wanted to win much more than him. When Yilin was restless enough, he would get an opening to use. That was why good things happened to those who waited. Seeing through Zhuofan's intent, or maybe he showed it on purpose, Yilin was getting tense and impatient. He wanted to strike Zhuofan down for good, but Shower would not let him. Time was running out. Bang! Yilin threw a bunch of scales, and Zhuofan used the Azure Dragon to mitigate the explosions. Yilin wanted to claw the Azure Dragon, but Shower butted in, and the impact of the purple lightning sent him flying and refocused on defense. He might have the advantage, but his hands were tied. Blasted. I have to get rid of that damn bird and fast. Yilin gnashed his teeth. Yin Yang Dragon Claw. Yilin's eyes flashed and shot for Zhuo Fan. His hand turned into a claw enveloped by raging flames as he aimed at Zhuo Fan's heart. Zhuo Fan used the Qilin arm to block, but behind it, he grinned. Kids these days have no patience, ha ha ha. Chapter 707, Orthodox. Chapter 707, Orthodox. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh. The golden claw whistled through the air and was about to strike while Zhuo Fan used his Qilin arm as a shield. Ready to take it on, the Qilin arm comes from the soaring Qilin. At the very least, it won't get me broken bones if you hit me anywhere else. It will take your blow. Shriek. Shower rushed in support, wanting to use this chance to strike. The claw was about to hit. If Yilin kept attacking, the claw would do nothing to Zhuo Fan's Qilin arm. Only the golden flames would seep in a little and barely cause any harm. Why else would I use that arm for all my attacks? Then Shower would come bearing brutal purple lightning to make another heavy wound on him after focusing all he had in that claw. It was, without a doubt, a bad tactic to use this attack. This scene had been recurring many times already. When one attacked with everything, the other would come to take advantage of the opening, only to force the attacker to shift to defense. This time was no different. Only Yilin was at the end of his patience. He would rather suffer another hit from Shower to get Zhuo Fan. It was an eye for an eye, you dare, boy? With 2 against 1, going for mutual harm isn't worth it. Zhuo Fan once again intimidated him while sneering inside. He's rash enough now. Yilin snorted. Mutual harm? Humph. I might have fallen for your tricks so far, but that's going to change. This time, I'm going to get rid of your spirit animal. Yilin was gone and left behind him his golden flames. It was like he was still attacking Zhuo Fan but lacking in power, but just the golden flames wouldn't be able to even singe Zhuo Fan's clothes since Zhuo Fan had the Azure Dragon and Demon Transformation art to absorb it. However, Yilin's figure appeared next to the golden flames and unleashed another claw, but this time at Shower, everyone gasped since Zhuo Fan revealed his purple dragon. They knew the purple lightning was a force to be reckoned with. It was brutal and powerful but lacked in defense, so Yilin fainted, striking Zhuo Fan, who had the Qilin arm for defense. While going for the defenseless Shower would show much better results, Shower would be gravely wounded if struck. The two's cooperation would fail, and Yilin would gain a real advantage. Dealing with Zhuo Fan later would only take a minute. This was the most definitive moment in this long and bitter match. Shower was startled, having not expected this. Feeling on her feathers the sharpness of that dragon claw, she tensed. Yin-Yang dragon claw. One real, one fake. Yilin snickered as his strike was about to land. He laughed. Zhuo Fan, you schemed for so long against me, but now it's my turn. My strike against you is fake, while the one against your spirit animal is real. This time, your cooperation failed, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan's brow shook as he floated in the air. The audience grew tense, having not expected Yilin would also start using feints. Wu Qingqiu chuckled. Ha ha ha, junior brother finally used his head. Not that he's slow, but that his opponents were never worth the effort. They all felt it was curtains for this long and exciting match. However, Zhuo Fan's grin was most devious. His right eye flashed golden. Ha ha ha, I don't really care how you go all out, just as long as you do. Divine Eye of the Void first stage, shift. Whoosh. In a flash, Zhuo Fan and Shower did the OL switcheroo so that Zhuo Fan was on the receiving end of Yilin's real strike. Yilin cried out, "What the hell? Where's that damn poultry?" Just then, the golden flame image was flapped away by Shower's wings, and she unleashed her purple lightning storm and clawed at Yilin's chest. The last claw had taken away his hard scales, and this one was bound to send purple lightning right into his innards. This had long stopped being an issue of winning for Yilin. He had to first protect his little life from being cooked from the inside. Wu Qingqiu cried out and tensed. The exalted shot to their feet and were just as nervous. It all happened so fast. 1 minute, it was Yilin's obvious advantage, and the next, his target switched places, putting him in grave danger. SSS. Gulping, Yilin was scared out of his mind. He halted his attack on Zhuo Fan and tried to get into a stance to defend, though it would take some time. Left with no choice, Yilin could only lean, taking Shower's sharp claws on his back and letting her remove 2 more glittering scales. Scarlet blood flowed from his back, and he gnashed his teeth from the pain. The sudden heavy blow had also interrupted the claw now meant for Zhuo Fan. Even after careful planning, he was still the one ending up hurt again while his adversary was untouched. Shower flew back to Zhuo Fan, throwing away the scales in her claws. Father, he just turned around, and I couldn't get him in the heart. It's fine. He's just too quick to react. In fact, we dealt a great blow this time. He now has two weaknesses. We'll now resort to pincer strikes and see how long he'll last. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan laughed as he snickered at Yilin. The clearer it is you can win with brawn, the more you need to use your head. Don't you know using your faults to fight an enemy's strengths is dumb? Trying to use feints against me, who had been among schemes all his life. Kid, you're unbearably naive. Yilin's face twitched in anger. Gritting his teeth, the audience had to agree on that. They thought Yilin finally played Zhuo Fan, only to be toyed with instead. Getting trapped as you lay a trap must sting. When Tao sighed, seeing Yilin boiling mad, using brains to crush the other. Yilin is clearly stronger, but Zhuo Fan keeps leading him, making this focused disciple lose his bearing. If he had kept to his beliefs, he wouldn't have to suffer so much. Focus. Xie Tianshang raised an eyebrow when Tao nodded. Yes, cultivators like us all have a focus as we advance. Some do it for power, some for status, some for fame, and some for supremacy. Each of us is walking the path we want that lead to the birth of personal beliefs and convictions. Isn't Yilin blunt? Then he should just take any adversary head-on. But after meeting Zhuo Fan, he's been toyed with so many times that he lost his way and stooped to fumbling on the other's path. He's been strung along all this time. When Tao looked above and smiled, the time's almost up. Now Yilin will become even more restless. He won't fall for another trick soon, and Zhuo Fan won't snatch a win soon either. It'll be a draw. But then he heard Zhuo Fan looking at the pretty sky and exclaimed, "Oh my, would you look at the time? It's going to be a draw at this rate." Staggering, when Tao stared at Zhuo Fan, then shook his head. Zhuo Fan is really devious. Even in the last moment, he can't help but prod Yilin, wishing for victory just as much. Zhuo Fan is savage and cunning to stir the other even more. Xie Tianshang chuckled. That's always been his nature. Huff. Gasping, Yilin was close to exhaustion both mentally and physically. He glared at the bird and man in hatred, but with no way of finishing them off. This frickin' punk is too sly. If he were too rash, he'd be duped. If he went too slow, he'd suffer for it even worse. The adversary always aimed to toy with his mind, thus making him unable to cope. He was now left confused and lost as to how to proceed. It was his first time meeting such an adversary. He was clearly stronger yet could do nothing to win. Just as he was filled with confusion, a shout broke through the haze. "Junior brother, he's rushing you on purpose. Don't fall for it. If you don't know what to do, ask your heart." Shaken up, Yilin looked back to see his head senior brother, Wu Qingqiu. Chapter 708, Win. Chapter 708, Win. Proofreader, Papatonks. Yilin's face twitched, and it finally dawned on his foggy mind. He had been strung along until he was lost, veering off his path. With a deep breath, Yilin regained his calm and closed his eyes. "Master, my sect is going through the outer sect competition tomorrow. There can only be 10 new inner disciples, but I'm just an outer disciple in the 21st place. What do I do?" A young Yilin asked the dragon ancestor, the huge dragon. I stared coldly as his voice rumbled. "Get rid of all those 20 people in front of you, but I can't beat them. Beat them all, or don't bother seeing me again," the dragon ancestor said coldly, then turned his back, face sinking. The young Yilin felt put on the spot. "They're better than me in martial arts and cultivation methods. How can I beat them? And the first 10 get to be inner disciples. I only need to beat 10. Worthless. Get lost." "Master, why are you cussing at me? Did I say something wrong?" Humans are devious and seize any chance to win, while also being weak. But if you think of yourself like that, you're not worthy of calling me master. The huge dragon spoke. Among spiritual beasts, every creature knows its position. Its place is clear to all. Do you know why? Yilin shook his head. "Why would I know that crap?" The dragon ancestor mocked. "That's because since ancient times, Since the primal chaos, once a spiritual beast lost, its rank is set. Every generation knows this. Once you lose, you will always lag behind. We, the 5 great sacred beasts, are at the peak of all spiritual beasts. We had fought among ourselves, but we could never win against each other, so we stood together. But in their hearts, they all wished to stand above everyone, to be the one true king. That's why our path, that of spiritual beasts, is to win. Winning means life, glory, and respect. It doesn't matter who is in front of you, how weak or strong, or how many. You are to remember my words, boy. If you are to be my disciple, you just have to win. Even if there were 100 people in front of you in the sect, you still have to go through all of them. You have to risk your life and fight them to win. There are still 3 months as well. I will see your progress afterward. The dragon ancestor closed his eyes and curled up to sleep. The young Yilin bowed and withdrew. 3 months later, a flash of fire revealed Yilin once more. His meridians were crushed and hanging by a thread. Master, I won. Yilin wheezed out. The dragon ancestor cast a cold gaze. All of them. I beat all of them. I staked my life, and they thought I was crazy. None wanted to meet me head-on. Finally, I came out first. With a faint smile, Yilin continued, Master, you were right. Humans are opportunistic and weak. None dared to face me. But now my body is ruined, and the inner sect doesn't want me anymore. Someone even laughed at me for being a fool, but I didn't care. I won, and I felt great. It was all worth it. The dragon ancestor nodded. The average man is blinded by fame and can't see the value of winning. You, however, now know the value in being first and have earned your right to be decimating dragon ancestor's disciple. The dragon ancestor's brow creased as a burning drop of blood flew out from between. It glittered like a ruby as it settled on Yilin's forehead. The dragon ancestor then clawed the back of his neck and came out with a sharp scale, the hardest reverse scale. Like a huge quilt, he settled it over Yilin. The dragon ancestor then breathed out golden flames onto the kid. After a full 49 days passed, the true dragon ancestor inheritor, the one we saw today, was born. He also inherited his master's path, to win. Losing once meant losing everything. Opening his eyes, Yilin had no hesitation left in them. He knew his path. His beliefs bouncing around from one trick to another was not a sacred beast style. For a sacred beast disciple, all that mattered was to win. Even if he was facing a fierce pair, he just had to stake it all and win. Yilin's spirit was lifted and caused even Zhuofan to shudder. Chower, be careful. This punk has made up his mind. He won't fall for it again. This time, we're fighting to the end. Zhuofan warned he had seen his fair share of resolute people like Yilin, and all of them were a big thorn to deal with. He had to keep his guard up no matter what came. Pa! Yilin put his hands together as he went through a series of signs. When he finished, his entire body exploded with power. The powerful decimating golden flame surged higher and higher like an endless sea. Zhuofan was in shock. Just what is he trying to do? The exalted double dragons were stunned as well. They could see that Yilin held in his eyes the desire to win, one that drove him mad. Who? Yilin made the final sign, and the torrent of golden flames rolled around him, and the image of a huge dragon appeared behind him. Bearing its fangs and savagery, the flaming inferno gathered around the dragon head and was ready to strike at any second. To this, Wu Qingqiu gasped, is this soul-scorching? Junior brother is going to burn his soul just to win? What? Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples were in disbelief. That's only used when one fights to the very end. If not careful, he could burn his entire soul away. The enemy only got him twice with his tricks, so why must he use such a definite strike? This is too extreme. You don't understand. This is the real junior brother. Wu Qingqiu shook his head and sighed. Did you all forget that outer sect competition? How did junior brother become the first to enter the inner sect? The others recalled those brutal fights and nodded. I've never seen a crazier lunatic in my life. Just to win, he staked his life. To the point, he got everyone so scared they soiled their pants. He even managed to beat the first outer disciples, but he broke his body to do it. The inner sect elder saw him ruined and didn't want him. He then asked senior brother to take him to the secret realm. Then, After 49 days, he returned as a true genius. This made people talk about the secret realm as being not just a heaven to refine the soul but the body as well. A shame that it never worked for anyone else. What you don't know is that after I saw his desperate struggle since he yearned to go to the secret realm, I chose to honor his last wish. But when I left his body, I soon found it gone. I used to think someone took it, only to find out 49 days later that he entered the inner sect. I believe there's a real secret in there, but he didn't want to tell anyone. Sighing, Wu Qingqiu said, "Now I understand that was where he found his path. Now, his mind is back to that time, and he sees Zhuo Fan as his bitter enemy." Everyone turned to Yilin and nodded. Ever since Yilin was reborn, no one could force him to show all he had. Until Zhuo Fan came along, that was why the kid was back to that time when he staked his life. Biting winds and searing hot air washed over Zhuo Fan, who was creasing his brows hard at the problem he faced. Such power was clearly meant for him and Shower together. He has stopped trying to deal with us one by one and wants to end us together. This is a madman no matter how one sees him. The best way to deal with a team was to pick them out individually. Taking them all out at the same time was too dangerous and pricey. Yilin, however, was a sacred beast inheritor. In his eyes, winning was everything. And worth everything. Shower, no matter what happens, you must stay behind me. I can take it. Zhuo Fan warned carefully. Shower nodded, despite the odd glimmer in her eyes. Chapter 709, Divine Eye of the Void's Fifth Stage. Chapter 709, Divine Eye of the Void's Fifth Stage. Proofreader, Papatonks. Who? Golden scorching flames surrounded Yilin. That concentrated and frightening power erupted now and then, singing more and more of the valley's flora. Demons, scheming Sect and ultimate clarity. Sect's disciples had long since ducked for cover 4 miles out, yet never taking their eyes off this grand and brutal battle. Yet even at this distance, the burning heat made them all sweat, only to be vaporized the next instant. All of them were strong kids of their generations, except for Yuer, in the third layer radiant stage, who had to take cover 40 miles away regardless. They all had difficulty resisting the fire, feeling as if it might pulverize them any second. Yilin's burning soul had made the decimating dragon ancestors' golden flames reach a new height of power, a power that could wipe anything out of existence. Even the audience watching the screen seemed to feel that dreadful power around them. The exalted stood up in shock and worry. Could Zhuo Fan even take such a strike? If their lives were put in danger, they would definitely intervene. Chu Qingsheng and the girls held their fists tight, their brows scrounged up in deep worry for Zhuo Fan's fate. If others could feel close to dying so far away, it went without saying that Zhuo Fan was getting the worst of it. Thick black energy covered his body. Heaven-devouring demonic dragon king coiled its body to protect him. It used the demon transformation art to refine this scorching heat. Zhuo Fan's eyes shook and grew tense as he used his dragon soul to keep Shower out of harm's way behind him. He said, "Shower, this might be the last clash to settle this fight. Help me at the start, but then you are to leave as fast as possible. Leave this to me." "Yes, father." Shower gave a hard nod, but her eyes shone with hesitation, something Zhuo Fan completely missed in his precarious state. He was only focused on Yilin. This has to be the punk's last-ditched effort. I just gotta live through this. And Zhuo Fan's gaze became hard as his hands made signs. In the 11th hour of the fight, these two were ready to stake it all. Zhuo Fan was going to use every dirty trick and skill he had learned to block this attack Yilin would unleash after he burned his soul. To unleash it, Yilin watched Zhuo Fan with a ragged breath. The strain on his soul was immense, but his eyes had never been more focused. His thirst for victory was like no other. In a fight of sacred beast inheritors, the last winner shall be me. Yilin shouted, "Zhuo Fan and that pet of yours, take this decimating dragon roar." Roar. The huge dragon image around Yilin roared, shaking the world, the mountains, and the skies with this roar. The golden flames shot for Zhuo Fan like a flamethrower, disintegrating anything in its path with its deadly heat. Zhuo Fan was overwhelmed. The exalted were in shock. They had never seen such focused power. Moreover, this power was focused on the decimating golden flame, which was already deadly to begin with. Just taking this attack would wipe one out of this world. Dan Qing Shan, hiding somewhere to the side, jerked, and his fingers were moving, wanting to come to the rescue. Against such power, not even a peak ethereal stage expert could survive it, let alone Zhuo Fan in the radiant stage. Just as he took a step, he halted. If he went out there now, all his efforts would be lost. He found himself unable to make a decision. The exalted double dragons saw this scene with tense looks, ready to step in as well. However, they were hoping, more than anything, that Zhuo Fan would give them a shocking surprise. Zhuo Fan's brow shook. Not even he had foreseen the other would unleash such an almighty attack. His heart was quivering, but the die was cast. All he could do now was shout, "Shower now!" "Yes, father." Shower spread her wings, and flickering purple lightning gathered within them as they cracked the air. Heaven-destroying thunder phoenix. Rumble. The earth shook, and the air quivered as Shower's flap of her wings sent a 300-meter large thunderbird straight for the incoming fire. At the same time, Zhuo Fan shouted as well, Wraith-style's third move, Necro-Dragon Screech. Roar. The demonic dragon shifted into the golden flames bane, the vaulting Dragon King. The huge dragon roared as it charged, its azure flames surging over its body. It combined with the purple thunderbird to unleash an even greater power. The audience was at the edge of their seats, fervent and expectant. They were all excited seeing these three mighty strikes being unleashed. Even Yinamo, a genius in his own right, was overwhelmed. Yi Lin and Zhuo Fan's fight had to be the strongest clash in thousands of years of Double Dragon gathering. None of the geniuses of Western lands could hold a candle to them now. They wanted to see who among these two would be the best disciple in Western lands, the future best in Western lands. Boom! The three powers finally came to a head. Only the audience watched in awe as Shower and Zhuo Fan's powers were crushed almost instantly by Yi Lin's golden flames. They went right through the Thunderbird and Azure flames in an overwhelming defeat. Everyone was tense, and Zhuo Fan's face fell, his brow soaked with sweat. Yi Lin's attack was beyond anything he had dreamed of. He had some guesses, but not to this extent in the face of such might. All the ways he thought of to deal with it left him shaking. They were not enough now that it had come to this. He could only do all he could and leave it to fate. Divine Eye of the Void's fifth stage, Void Wall. Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed with 5 golden halos, and 100 meters around him formed a spatial barrier. This was the unexpected benefit of the 3-day soul training he went through before this fight, allowing him to set up spatial walls to defend. Alas, he never had a chance to get familiar with this move and didn't know if it would keep back the flames. Zhuo Fan tensed as the sweat mounted. Bam! The golden flamethrower slammed into the barrier and was stopped in its tracks. It worked? Zhuo Fan was happy, yet the audience was stumped as to what he did now. The exalted double dragons tensed, then admired. This kid has an endless bag of tricks. However, no one got the chance to breathe easier as cracks resounded, spreading all over the air around Zhuo Fan like a spiderweb. Zhuo Fan also felt his right eye was on fire from all the pain, but he gritted his teeth. The 5 golden halos were still shining, even as blood seeped out. Bam! Finally, the barrier cracked open, and the burning flames went straight for Zhuo Fan. Even if more subdued than before, it was clear that the void wall was truly strong. Despite failing in the end, it brought Zhuo Fan hope. It might be strong, but it can be blocked. Ack! Zhuo Fan held his bleeding right eye as he wailed. Yet his mouth was perked in a smile. Since this barrier works, I'll just slow the attack down bit by bit. Zhuo Fan ignored the wound in his eye and took away his arms to reveal 4 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void's 4th stage, Space Crusher. Hum. The powerful vibrations consumed 100 meters around him, yet the fierce flames were still getting closer as if they were unaffected. The scorching flames were so strong that they actually burned the oscillations. Zhuo Fan's heart tensed as he watched incredulously. Space Crusher had no effect whatsoever. Now he had nothing left to wear down the flames. That meant he would have to bear the heat all by himself. Zhuo Fan's heart sank, his eyes reflecting the still almighty burning flames. His face had never been more grave. Chapter 710. Sacrifice. Chapter 710. Sacrifice. Proofreader, Papatonks. If I knew it was going to be like this, I'd have used that tiebreaker. Though I've just learned it, and it's still dangerous. It was not only dangerous for himself, but for the enemy as well. Am I seeking stability too much? Seeing the flames right on top of him, Fan was filled with regret. Why couldn't he have done like Yilin did and risk his life to unleash all he had? Alas, it was already too late to do anything. Taking a deep breath, Fan finally decided to face the golden flames head-on. He sent the vaulting Dragon King to coil around him and wrap him in thick azure flames. This was his last chance, to use the azure flame's quality as a mediator between yin and yang to subdue the golden flame's brutality. But with how the azure flame and golden flame engender each other, it might combine with the golden flame. He had to first wear it down, or with how strong the golden flame was, it would simply scatter his aside. The crux was, after the azure flame was blown away, all that was left was his defenseless dragon soul. This was his last defense. Afterward, his soul might perish outside of using the azure dragon. He had no other way. That was why he was finally giving his all in this fight. Frowning, Fan glared at the dazzling flames. As they drew closer, his sweat kept pouring out. He offered one last prayer of hope. Let this be enough. Yilin looked on coldly as he gasped. It's no use. I burned my own soul to unleash this decimating golden flame. A half-baked sacred beast inheritor like you stands no chance. Farewell, my fated adversary. Bam! The flames slammed into the azure dragon at last. The powerful force made the dragon shake and howl in pain. Fan's mind was overcome with pain as well. It felt like his head was exploding from the thousands of blades sinking into it, but he held on still. He had the azure flame face the incoming attack. Wanting to submerge the golden flames in an ocean of azure, he had no chance. The long stream of scorching flames was like a needle, piercing the azure flame sea. Even as they touched, the azure flame offered no resistance. He was lucky enough if his own power wasn't worn out. Instead, he had never imagined that Yilin's attack would be condensed to such a degree. It was so strong that his last-ditch effort was useless. The azure flame had no way of chipping away at the attack. Not a damn use it had. Going at it with such a defense was practically suicide. If he had known, he would have done that. That was what he should have done from the start. Suddenly, Fan's body shook from endless despair and regret. Unfortunately, it was too late to come out of this one. As the golden flames came closer, a burning storm swept the entire body of the azure dragon and immediately removed its flames before the golden flames reached it. Its heat was constantly burning the dragon's soul. Fan's head was boiling as he spat out crimson blood. It's over. Once the flames entered the dragon's soul, he was a goner. He had been aware of Yilin's power, but it seemed that he still underestimated his opponent. Even if he wanted to use a real desperate move now, it was far too late. This fight was going to take his life away. Letting out a long breath, Fan was overcome with regret. Chu Qingcheng was distraught, her eyes tearing over. Xian Xiaoyu snickered all the while at his misfortune. The exalted double dragons were just about to put an end to this fight. However, a cry pierced everyone's ears. They all saw as purple lightning flickered and a familiar figure floated in front of the dragon soul. Fan squinted, and he saw the tens of meters of a big purple bird. Chower, did he not tell her to stay clear? Why? Chower faced the golden flames coming at the azure dragon without remorse. Wait. Chower finally dawning on him, Fan shouted. But Chower, streaked with purple lightning, had already met the golden flames. The purple lightning and the golden flames were brutal powers between heaven and earth, and as they clashed, it was almost like a resonance, issuing endless explosions. Maybe Chower had used every ounce of purple lightning she had as the golden flames were stopped. Even though the mighty flames were stopped, its power was still incredible. The golden flames swallowed Chower in its searing heat, even as her eyes were stubbornly holding on, using every drop of energy she had, even willing to use her life just to stop the flames and the clashes between the purple lightning and golden flames. The flames were subsiding. Seen with the naked eye, the purple lightning was like a chisel, chipping away at its power. The golden flame was like a viper, tearing at Chower at every chance it got. Burning her plumes, she did not care. Holding on with all she had to crush the golden flames. Fan's heart was in pain. He knew now that Chower was sacrificing herself for his sake. Finally, the golden flames made a last bang as they dissipated. Chower was now burned all over, the purple flickering on her body long since exhausted. She just plopped on the ground powerlessly. Zhuo Fan shook all over as he took one hard step after another closer to her. Chu Qingsheng held her mouth, her eyes glistening with tears. Thank you, Shower. Such a protective spirit animal. When Tao sighed, Xie Tianshang was the most familiar with Zhuo Fan and sighed as well. Zhuo Fan raised this spiritual beast as his daughter. I see. No wonder she's so loyal. When Tao gave Shower a long look of admiration, Xie Tianshang shook his head. Senior brother, you didn't understand me. I mean to say that now that Zhuo Fan's daughter, Shower, lays dead, he will be truly enraged. The last time that happened, he ate his enemy alive. Just thinking about it gives me the chills. But, can he even do it? Yilin's power. When Tao frowned, Xie Tianshang smiled with a shake of his head. In the esoteric debate, he wasn't that guy's match either. Trust me when I say this, those that he wants dead have no chance of living. When Tao's heart shook in shock and looked at Zhuo Fan with a grave face, foolish girl, didn't I tell you to run? Now that you're so big, you won't listen to your dad? Slowly walking to Shower, Zhuo Fan bent down, caressing the sizzling body, burned by the golden flames. He felt one last trace of energy in her and rushed to take out a pill to give her, smiling calmly, yet that calm hid a dreadful bloodlust. After they heard his words, they all shivered to their bones. Yilin panted from that heavy exertion and shouted, Zhuo Fan, your spirit animal had saved you from death. But it's only a matter of time now. It shows that I will win by staking it all, while you, who don't have such power, will lose. Yilin was once again making signs, gathering the same power he used before to unleash it again. Wait, junior brother, he doesn't have the spirit animal's help now. You don't have to go that far. Wu Qingqiu cried out. Yilin didn't even hear him as he kept going. Even as his breath grew heavier and face paler, there wasn't much time, and Zhuo Fan was beyond cunning. He wanted to win, and that meant he had to use all he had to destroy his opponent and leave no room for error. This was his beast path. Victory above all else. Tightening his fists, Zhuo Fan stood up and gnashed his teeth with bloodshot eyes. You want to stake it all? Huh, you asked for it. Chapter 711. The Deadliest Variant. Chapter 711. The Deadliest Variant. Proofreader. Papatonks. These kids still want to fight. Exalted He Ran watched the battlefield intently as he sighed. It had now stopped being a simple match to declare a winner. It's a battle to the death. Just what grudge could they have to go so far? Exalted by Mei sighed. Let's ignore that for now. Let's assume Yilin's soul can take unleashing that attack again. Zhuo Fan would still have no chance of stopping it. It is a high chance that this fight will end in both of them dying. If we could, calling it a draw would be better than losing both. Judge, how much time is there? Looking below, Exalted He Ran asked the judge, checked the sun's position and bowed. Exalted, there are still 15 minutes left. Enough for one more hard clash. I hope those two will be fine. Exalted by Mei shook his head. Both of them looked at the two kids with pity. A mountain can only have one tiger. Who? The golden flames flared hotter and hotter as the image of a huge dragon head formed behind Yilin. Glaring at Zhuo Fan, the audience gasped, but mostly cheered at the development. It was a real eye-opener to see such a destructive attack being unleashed now that it was happening again. They couldn't be happier. Chu Qingsheng was wrought with worry once more. The girls saw how Zhuo Fan had nothing that could deal with such an attack, not even to defend himself. Young sect leader, Steward Zhuo, just be reasonable and give up. You've done more than enough. There's no need for you to give your life for the sect. Fiend Yang prayed. Fearing the worst, Yenemo frowned as he clenched his fists. Yu Mei next to him asked, Senior brother, are you sympathizing with your once enemy or cheering Yilin to finish him? The strong need not sympathy. All I know is this. After this, one of them will be the best disciple in Western lands, the future best in Western lands. Yen Mo's brow shook, yet even as he spoke, his eyes never left Zhuo Fan. Yu Mei scowled at this and shook her head. He already picked a side, yet he just doesn't want to admit it. He hoped Zhuo Fan would win this. And while Zhuo Fan wouldn't admit it to him, the two had become friends through the fight they had as demonic cultivators. Zhuo Fan had earned his truest respect. That was why he hoped Zhuo Fan would win, Despite knowing full well the hopes were slim at best, everyone around the screen was eager to see the conclusion of this grand fight. Especially the Sect teams, all hoping Zhuo Fan would come out alive, even if losing only Zhao Dazhu. Xin Xiaoyu and a few others were reveling in his misery. This punk will finally leave this world for good. Pa! Yi Lin's signs came to an end and the power around him exploded in size. While his body grew weaker, however, he didn't care, grinning as he laughed. Zhuo Fan, I win. Are you ready for the decimating dragon roar? With a roar, a spray of molten golden flames spewed straight for Zhuo Fan, just like before. The crowd was stretched taut. Afraid of missing anything, Zhuo Fan perked up his mouth and wiped the blood off. He looked at the unconscious and badly wounded Shower and gave a shake of his head. Shower, did you know your dad never owes anyone anything, especially favors? But today, this debt I have to repay is heavy. You risked your life for me when I couldn't put mine on the line for myself. Ha ha ha, I'm such a fool this time. Even if it's now even more dangerous, I will do it. I will stake my life for you and obliterate that obnoxious punk. Zhuo Fan's hands began his own signs. The azure dragon's flames vanished, yet it didn't turn into another variation, returning back to its prismatic and original form as it guarded him startled. The crowd was taken by surprise. Right at the most crucial moment, he renounces his variants and goes for the basic dragon soul. Zhuo Fan closed his eyes as he finished the last sign. With a vague smile, an azure flame flickered on the dragon's forehead. SSS. Purple lightning streaked its body like thousands of snakes. They reached the dragon head, where they vanished with a rumble. Dark mist, black as night, shifted all over the dragon, converging at the head once more and disappearing. Yi Lin was puzzled. Then an explosion happened, and the dragon head released the aura of 3 different powers. The azure flame burned on the forehead, with a purple streak flashing inside it. Then the black mist enveloped them all as a 4th power. Qilin's red glow covered them like a furnace to get them to combine as they did. A terrible aura was unleashed. The others could barely feel it, but Yi Lin, being the closest, felt its raw power rise. Grinning, Zhuo Fan said, "You guessed it. This is my way of combining the 4 dragon souls. I didn't do it before because even I'm scared of this power, scared I can't control it and kill myself with it. But now I thought that since I'm fighting with my life, I have to show something for it. If I die by failing to do it, then that's my luck. But if I succeed in combining them, then you're dead." Startled, Yi Lin looked overwhelmed as he stared intently at the dragon's forehead. Yet somehow, even as the powers mingled, they did not combine. It was also then that Yi Lin's spray of molten flames reached Zhuo Fan. Ha ha ha, your time's up. Maybe it can never combine at all. These powers all come from a sacred beast's raw trait. They are inherently repulsed by anything else. Maybe for Zhuo Fan or for himself. Yi Lin cackled as he saw his attack about to reach Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan simply stated, "Yi Lin, you just don't get my cultivation method. I walk the common path of all the others. Moreover, the 5 great sacred beasts all come from the primal chaos, each wielding one aspect of it. Hasn't it ever occurred to you that they were once a whole? Ha ha ha, it might be just a wild guess or the actual truth. Regardless, today, one of us will die. If I die from my own combined power instead of yours, ain't a bad way to go either." Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed, and he raised an eyebrow. "By the way, since I figured the 5 powers could fuse, I find the 3 of them just lacking. So let's add another one." With a boom, on the dragon's forehead appeared a golden flame, the decimating golden flame. "Wah-h how?" Yi Lin cried out, dismissing him with a wave. Zhuo Fan fibbed, "Easy now. It's just a smidgen my demonic dragon stole from you. Nothing to it. Then again, it is a great boost in my realization of combining these powers. After all, you need both gentle and brutal flames to get them to combine. Ha ha ha." Zhuo Fan turned to the dragon head, eager for the result. Just like he thought, since the golden flame was introduced, it began to quickly combine with the azure flame. Then the purple lightning constantly zapped them as it joined the fusion. It was all going quite smoothly with the Qilin power as the furnace, demon transformation art the base, and the purple lightning as the medium. The 2 flames stabilized as they united. The searing heat of the golden flame was right on top of Zhuo Fan. The power was so much that it caused Zhuofan's white hair to wither. The audience gasped in worry. Some girls even cried out and looked away. A ripple spread from the dragon's forehead just then and revealed a black flame, with streaks of purple flashing now and then. Its almighty power swept everything, disintegrating all in its path. Yi Lin's spray of flames had met its match. As it stopped, it was more accurate to say that it did not stop at all. Even as it kept going, it was just being pulverized once past a certain point, so that it never reached Zhuofan. Zhuofan spewed blood and shook. He looked back at his dragon soul and saw it twitch all over as the black flame was going crazy, just like I thought, the deadliest variant. I have no way of controlling it as I am. Its power is even above the 5 great sacred beasts. Zhuofan rejoiced inside, even as the blood kept pouring out of his mouth. Chapter 712, Dreadful Thunder Flame. Chapter 712, Dreadful Thunder Flame. Proofreader, Papatonks. Who? The dreaded power blew over, making even Yi Lin, covered in flames, shiver and take a step back. His always invincible golden flame was pushed back and subdued. The dragon image around him was also on the verge of falling apart the moment the palm-sized thunder flame showed up. It brought with it unspeakable change. The spray of golden flames never even touched Zhuofan, pulverized ahead of schedule due to the thunder flame. Yi Lin was dumbstruck. How can this be? What the hell is that thing anyway? How can it make the decimating golden flame unable to fight back at all? How much terrifying power does that guy have? Yi Lin squinted, his eyes vacant as he stared at the thunder flame on the dragon's forehead. To him, the 5 great sacred beasts' powers were supreme. When was there a time they would shirk away instead? Never. Not even the 5 great sacred beasts would believe the world would have such kind of power either, yet reality proved otherwise. A terrible power that surpassed all was about to be born. All of it came from Zhuofan's powers he got from those emperors and sacred beasts, then fused the. This aura is the same I felt when Steward Zhuo came from his room. No, even worse. Kuei Leng shuddered at the sight of that power, capable of destroying anything and everything. He gulped in fear. The rest bobbed their heads in reflex, staring at it with soaked backs. They had no clue what ultimate move Zhuofan pulled to unleash such power, but they were afraid of it. The ultimate clarity Sect team had it worse. Wu Qingqiu's face fell the instant the thunder flame showed up. He had no clue about what Zhuofan did, but he could feel that this power was beyond Yi Lin's golden flame. He had an inkling this power was not something a human should have. It felt like it was an omen to the destruction of this world. Face twitching, Wu Qingqiu gnashed his teeth and forced a smile. Gods, just how far did those two's fight go? I have no doubt the two would be leveling Double Dragon Manor if they fight like this again. Senior brother, why, you're exaggerating. They're only at the ethereal stage. The Double Dragon Manor has the exalted, so they can't let it happen. One disciple said. Wu Qingqiu shook his head with a solemn look. You're still green and can't see it. This isn't about strength, but being worlds apart among each other. You all know just how deadly Junior Brother's golden flame can be, but that black thunder flame gives me an even worse feeling. I firmly believe the exalted couldn't block this thunder flame that isn't any less than the golden flame. Wu Qingqiu's brow was soaked as he watched on. This frickin' fight is beyond outrageous. One more dreadful than the other. They're just not human. SSS. The audience watched the image on the screen fading to static, and the gatekeepers made constant signs to change the angle to restore the signal. The thing was, it was always further and further away from the fight. When the image finally stabilized, they were watching from 3 miles away. All the audience saw were the 2 dots standing still, while the dazzling flame spray and the black flame on Dragon's forehead were at odds. What happened? Why is the image so far away? Exalted Hei Ran asked the 2 elders. One of them bowed. Exalted, the monitoring arrays around the 2 have some interference and stops us from looking closer. The closest one working is this monitoring array 3 miles away. What? Exalted by Mei cried out. All the monitoring arrays in that valley were set up with sacred stones. You can't even destroy them easily. And now, when the 2 are even fighting each other, we can't even. Exalted by Mei thought about something and gave a shocked look to Exalted Hei Ran. Exalted Hei Ran was a bit lost. Don't tell me that just the shockwaves of their fight was enough to damage the monitoring arrays. Not even we can do that. Exalted He Ran turned to look at the screen and stared at the black flash and Yi Lin's alarmed face. Even with Zhuo Fan's pale face, the flame did not get any closer. It was the Exalted that sprung into action. Exalted by Mei reacted as well and was shocked. You mean to tell me that black things ripple can destroy sacred stones? This never happened no matter how many times the azure flame or golden flame clashed. Yet it happened with the black flame that meant this black flame was a cut above those other two. A terrifying existence. But can Zhuo Fan control such power? Looking at Zhuo Fan shaking and spitting blood, Exalted by Mei tensed and got his answer. He can't for now. But since it was now out, he had to withstand its pressure to the end, unless he wanted the flame to lash out and destroy him. No wonder he never used it in his fight with Yi Lin till his spirit animal got heavily wounded. This was a move that put one's life on the line, only worth taking out when you wanted the other one deader than dead. It was going even further than Yi Lin burning his soul. If Zhuo Fan's move fizzled out, his soul would go down with it. If he succeeded, then Yi Lin in his soul and body combined form would be toast. One was bound to die here. He Ran saw this and sprung into action. Whoosh! With a flick of the hand, a black glow flashed and then a white tunnel appeared. Exalted He Ran went through it and entered the valley. The audience was speechless. Where's Exalted He Ran going now? They never saw the Exalted being nervous before in the valley. Zhuo Fan kept puking blood, his body popping and spreading blood as well. Even so, he bore it. The dreadful thunder flame was so insidious it ate his body as well. His dragon soul was shaking, on the verge of crumbling under the thunder flame's power. Zhuo Fan grinned. Despite it all, seeing the flames unable to touch him. There's always a way out in every crisis. The thunder was dangerous, but quite handy at the very least. Only with this dreadful power can I waste you, punk. Zhuo Fan narrowed his eyes and began to move his hands. His dragon soul jerked and slowly opened its maw. The thunder flame slowly moved from the forehead to its throat, yet they both looked ready to fall to the ground at the slightest breeze. To Yi Lin, though, it was pure horror. He was actually scared for once, and backed away. Maybe it was the first time he felt something like this. This minute thunder flame was giving him the worst feeling he ever felt. Gulping, Yi Lin stared at Zhuo Fan. Nervous and shaking, Zhuo Fan's signs finally drew to a close and he sported a nasty grin. It seems my risk paid off and you, brat, are going to suffer for it. Wraith Style's third move, Necro Dragon Screech. Roar. The shockwave shook the world around as the dragon roared. The thunder flame turned into a snake in its throat and darted forth. It was a snake no bigger than a meter. In all of Zhuo Fan's Necro Dragon Screech he used, this was the worst looking by far yet. This tiny snake gave Yi Lin the feeling of impending doom. Chapter 713, Finale. Chapter 713, Finale. Proofreader, Papatonks. Boom. The small black thunder flame struck like lightning. It entered Yi Lin's flames, then exploded into nothing. Yet it just kept on going. Right for Yi Lin? A what? A mere thunder flame is so strong? Squinting, Yi Lin now witnessed its power while also feeding his fears. That thing was incredibly deadly. No matter how tiny it looked, Yi Lin backed away, now soaked in sweat. He rushed to make signs and ignite his soul to bolster the golden flame around him. He formed around himself a dazzling barrier of flames, which made him very pale. He knew better than anyone just how powerful his flames were. Even so, he knew the tiny thunder flame had to be even worse. Yi Lin gnashed his teeth, but his body kept on shaking. Wu Qingqiu was filled with worry. It was the first time he saw his prideful junior brother so afraid. Exalted by Mei was stupefied as the flames were gone in a blink. The thunder flame was even stronger than he thought. The black flame shouldn't have been able to do that, since the golden flames were unleashed through Yi Lin's burning of his soul. Its power was just short of blowing one's soul up. Yet even so, it still did it. Thank God that old-timer is going, or Yi Lin might be a goner. Seeing the black thunder flame shot forward, Exalted by Mei gasped. The audience was simply slack-jawed. None saw Zhuo Fan's comeback to be so utterly overwhelming. He didn't just turn the tables, he even forced the enemy to face death. It was only made more apparent after Zhuo Fan and Chao barely managed to stop the attack last time when Tao was dumbfounded inside. Tianshang, I think I get what you mean. Brother Zhua isn't one to be messed with. I never thought that angering him would result in taking out that deadly thing. I bet Yilin must be feeling the worst right now. He's facing something that shirked off his attack that he burned his soul to unleash. Ugh, I didn't know he was hiding this either. Xie Tianshang shook his head. Zhua Fan's bag of tricks is bottomless. No one ever knows what his final ace is. All the mystery revolving around him is what makes everyone fear him. Only when fighting him for real will people feel true terror. When Tao gave him a look and then nodded, Yilin's devotion to his path was strong, but even deadlier was Zhua Fan, who had endless tricks up his sleeves than the outcome. Whoosh! A crisp sound entered the people's ears and the thunder flame was right at Yilin. Cracking space on its way, Zhua Fan stared with a smile. The people were tense and excited. Exalted by Mei was frowning in worry. What's taking that old coot so long? But no one was more frantic than Yilin. Having to face the thunder flame, his face hardened and his brow knitted as his hands made a sign. Shaking as he stared at the deadly thunder flame, the golden flame around him was everything he had put out. All his power was now on display. Focused on defense, he had given all he had, and now he was pale. Yet even this was of no comfort to him, feeling not even this was enough in this matter of life and death, but that was all he could muster. The two thus unleashed their very last drop of power. The outcome about to be decided in this final clash, the two looked grave, waiting for this to end. Whoosh! The black thunder flame finally struck Yilin's flaming defense. Yilin's heart tightened, and the golden flames erupted. The audience looked on. Tense, Zhua Fan's face fell as he glanced at the unconscious Chower, waiting for the finale. Bam! The loud explosion destroyed Yilin's wall. He shook from the blow and spat out blood, but kept his fearful eyes forward. The black thunder flame snake was coming for him. I'm done for? Yilin felt crushed in the face of such terrible power. Junior brother. Wu Qingqiu cried out, without any use. He wouldn't be able to help even if he got there. The others looked on tense. Exalted by Mei frowned harder. Only Zhua Fan had on an evil smirk, his eyes glinting with joy. That's what you get for harming my daughter, you prick. Seizing Dragon Claw, an aged voice gave signal to the appearance of a faint dragon claw, grabbing the thunder flame snake and stopping it from skewering Yilin. The thunder flame halted on the spot, and Yilin could breathe easy at long last. I'm saved. Zhua Fan frowned and saw an old man approaching. The people looked on in shock. What's Exalted He Ran doing there? Then it was made obvious as he saved Yilin. Yilin must be somebody to get an Exalted to save him. Exalted by Mei eased a breath at Exalted He Ran's success. Thank God he made it. Or Zhua Fan would have finished Yilin off. What's the meaning of this, Exalted He Ran? Is the time up yet? Zhua Fan glared at the old man in a foul mood. Exalted He Ran shook his head. Kid, the outcome is obvious. What does it matter now? Double Dragon Gathering has rules. Unless one side admits defeat or is crushed, can the other win? Exalted should be more clear on this than me. Zhua Fan huffed. Exalted, the Western lands are watching. You can't go about doing what you will. You'll damage Double Dragon Manor's name. Exalted He Ran's face twitched. The brat is so stubborn. I get you want Yilin's head on a platter, but must you mock me with the competition? Exalted He Ran knew Zhua Fan's anger came from his hurt spirit animal. He would need to be diplomatic in this if he wanted to appease him. So he gave Yilin a look. Call it quits already, boy. Face the facts. Besides, you already won by getting saved. Getting his hint, Yilin turned to Zhua Fan, yet he couldn't for the life of him open his mouth. As a sacred beast inheritor, there were no quitters. Only dead ones who lost. The golden flames around Yilin were still shielding him, his eyes still thirsting for battle. Exalted He Ran sighed. Pig-headed. A bang sounded just then, and Exalted He Ran's claw made the thunder flame snake explode. The thunder flame snake was soon reduced to nothing. Yet a sliver of black slipped through, shooting for Yilin. It entered his body. In that instant, explosions came one after another, followed by flashes of lightning. After a long torrent of blood was spewed out, Yilin looked on with wide and incredulous eyes as he feebly said, "That thing is brutal. I can't fight it even if I stake my life. Master, I lost." Plop. Yilin fell in his own blood, shocking everyone. Exalted He Ran's hand shook. his face a mask of shock even though it was under his control. A bit escaped and entered Yilin. What is that thing? Exalted He Ran glanced at Zhuo Fan in fear. Chapter 714. Open. Chapter 714. Open. Proofreader. Papatonks. The exalted double dragons were the strongest in Western lands, and no one could take a life around them unless they allowed it. Not even Danqing Shan could do it, evidently. This incident left everyone gasping, even the exalted Zhuo Fan. Not even in the ethereal stage, mind you. Released some black snake that no matter how strong, exalted He Ran still caught it was plain for all to see. Yet even so, when exalted He Ran felt in control, the unexpected happened. His claw was overcome in the explosion, and the one he was supposed to save got hit hard. It left the entire crowd picking their jaws off the floor. Zhuo Fan is a frickin' savage. He actually got to hurt someone under the Exalted's protection in front of everyone. This has never happened. Yinamo chuckled. The entire Western lands are going to know him now. One day, he'll even be the best in Western lands as well. The crowd started talking to each other in hushed tones. Mystical Heaven Sect girls were gesticulating and clamoring. Only Xin Xiaoyu went dark there, his heart consumed by rage. This accursed bastard still got on top. The entire scene was noisy. All shocked by what they witnessed. Exalted by Mei stood there for a moment, lost. Even he found it hard to believe even with that old-timer's intervention, it would still end up like this. I should have gone there as well. But then he shook his head, ha ha. Hindsight truly is 20/20. With how fast it all happened, it wouldn't make a difference if I went too. The one to blame is that weird thunder flame, able to destroy the claw. The question now, though, is Yilin alive? Bai Mei looked on with worry, since this was his future disciple, junior brother. Wu Qingqiu rushed as he saw Yilin collapsing and held him up. Exalted He Ran was still too out of it to react. Now, when he came to, he glanced at Zhuo Fan with utter disbelief. If he has the power to ruin my move now, what will his future hold? A true battle of freaks, with limitless potential. Zhuo Fan saw Yilin was going down and sported a most pleased smile. Then he puked blood and went down next to Chower. Feeble and pale, the black thunder flame was damn strong. But to withstand its power, Zhuo Fan's body had to pay the toll. He was only standing by sheer willpower, and now that it was over, he fell down. Exalted He Ran understood why as well, choosing to hurt himself if it meant taking down the enemy. Zhuo Fan may be just as wounded at Yilin because of it. Oh, Yilin, is he dead? Finally getting his wits about him, Exalted He Ran rushed over. Wu Qingqiu, how's your junior brother? Thank you for your concern, Exalted. Junior brother is in a very critical state, but he still has a breath left. He should recover. Wu Qingqiu bowed. Exalted He Ran nodded, and then heard Zhuo Fan sighing. Humph, he still breathes after all. It's all that damn old coot's fault, ruining most of the thunder flame's power and leaving just a sliver. Hey, that old coot is right here. Don't think I can't hear just 'cause you're mumbling. Are you trying to make me look even worse? Exalted He Ran glared at him, then shook his head. You and Yilin are rare talents in Western lands. We don't want to see any of you die. I might have come to Yilin's rescue, but I would have done the same if it were you instead. Zhuo Fan simply lay there in silence. He knew the instant the old guy showed up that getting revenge for Chower and killing Yilin was almost impossible, but even he didn't think the thunder flame was so nifty. It escaped Exalted He Ran's control and struck that punk half dead. Now his anger was mostly abated. That left Chower's worst state as the problem hum. The beam of light showed up once more in the valley. Exalted He Ran was the first to walk to it. Time's up. The fight's verdict is up to the judge. Then he was gone. Wu Qingqiu glanced at Zhuo Fan with a complex look. He just sighed and signaled for his team to retreat. Demon Scheming Sect's disciples rushed over for Zhuo Fan's orders. After they got the thunder ring and put Chower inside, someone helped him go through the light. All soon left the valley, leaving only Danqing Shan hiding in a corner. Kid, you're the first in history to wound someone in front of Exalted He Ran. Ha ha ha. Danqing Shan vanished from his spot as well. Clap. When the teams were back, they were showered in applause. Yilin and Zhuo Fan's fight had been an amazing display of power. The best of the best. The people had also come to terms with who was the future best in Western lands as well. Cough, cough, cough. The judge cleared his throat, looking from the unconscious Yi Lin on Wu Qingqiu's back to the weary Zhuo Fan held by Kue Lang. I have been a judge at Double Dragon Gathering for 5 times. I had seen my fair share of disciples, but only you filled me with hope for the Western lands. You've done well, ha ha ha. The judge then turned serious. It's time to pass the verdict. In this Ultimate Clarity Sect versus Demon Scheming Sect challenge fight, Ultimate Clarity Sect came back with 1 wounded and Demon Scheming Sect came back with 1 wounded. The result is a draw. Wait, Wu Qingqiu cried out. They all watched as he looked at Zhuo Fan. The team battle's outcome is dependent on Yi Lin and Zhuo Fan's fight. Junior brother will most likely not like it, but a loss is a loss. Yi Lin lost to Zhuo Fan, and that means Ultimate Clarity Sect lost to Demon Scheming Sect. The judge froze then nodded. Wu Qingqiu, the loss of a team battle affects the entire sect. Will your elders approve of this? As far as I know, you're one of the few sects that did not come with a venerable. It shows how confident the sect is in you. Ultimate Clarity Sect has always been carefree, not after fame and wealth. A loss is a loss. There's nothing more to it. Twisting our path just for a bit of something goes against our sect's teachings. Wu Qingqiu held his head high as he declared, earning everyone's admiration. The judge nodded. In that case, the first of the 9 sects will be... The judge paused for effect, looking at Demon Scheming Sect. The fiends were overexcited now, never believing their eyes. They were at the top. Then a cold voice came. Wait. Now the eyes darted on Zhuo Fan. Ugh. Now what? The judge frowned. Zhuo Fan said, nothing really, just that we can't take the top position. Brother Zhuo, it's what you get for winning. Zhuo Fan waved his hand at Wu Qingqiu. Brother Wu, since it's a team battle, it is 10 against 10. Yi Lin and my fight was just a single fight. If I still had some fight left afterwards, then I would have taken it, of course. However, you can all see my state. And the rest of our disciples are no match. This team battle is our loss. I may not be a nice guy, but I am open in my actions. I don't take more than I deserve. I can't take it, or I'll see it as charity and will be nothing more than an insult. Wu Qingqiu shook and cupped his hands. Brother Zhuo, you may be a demonic cultivator, but you truly are a gentleman. No, I just have a mean guy's pride. Ha ha ha, Zhuo Fan chuckled. Chapter 7:15. Ranks. Chapter 7:15. Ranks. Proofreader. Papatonks. The judge looked from one to the other and nodded. Good. Since you both don't care about it, Zhuo Fan's words make a lot more sense as to how this team battle ended. Thus, I shall declare Ultimate Clarity Sect as the slightly better victor. The crowd exploded in applause, not just for the nominal winner, Ultimate Clarity Sect, but for Zhuo Fan as well. This soft mean Zhuo Fan's open manner of only taking what he deserved let the people see that nasty demonic cultivators had their own elegance. Demon Soul Sect nodded, looking at Zhuo Fan as the model example of a demonic cultivator. Yinamo sighed as he watched him. Even demons have their path. Maybe I've been indulging too much as of late. Ha ha ha. Sister Qingcheng, he just gave up the glory of being at the top. Those venerables of theirs have to be fuming mad. Danner batted her purty eyes in shock. This chance may come only once. Maybe the next time they come to Double Dragon Gathering, they won't get any higher. Chu Qingcheng smiled, her gaze soft as she was reminded of 100 Pill meeting. That's who he is. He's the same as before? The girls noticed what she meant and nodded. As they looked at Zhuo Fan, their gazes were taking different meanings. Only Xian Xiaoyu was raging inside. Zhuo Fan's win had earned everyone's approval. He even refused fame. Funny how this was exactly Mystical Heaven Sect's aim when they plotted against Demon Scheming Sect. There were already people whispering and mocking Mystical Heaven Sect. Some even reached his ears. It only worked to make his heart rage harder. Zhuo Fan had been up to his tricks many times in his fight, yet Mystical Heaven Sect only did it once. Now Zhuo Fan was hailed as a hero and them as hypocrites. How is that fair? He had no clue, though, that Zhuo Fan was no goody-goody, but was cunning and vile. Even so, he had principles. Principles that he would not cross. This was what got everyone's attention. Xian Xiaoyu's side, on the other hand, was a righteous sect that had deviated from their path. That was why they were given dirtier looks than the demonic cultivators that showed that an open meanie was better than a shameless hypocrite to make friends with. It was all because the former had a code they knew he followed, while the latter could stab you in the back anytime, anywhere they saw fit. Though these reasons weren't noticed by many, their basic instinct made them feel who was the better choice, so the voice of the people hailed Zhuo Fan, a demonic cultivator, while it denounced Xin Xiaoyu, a righteous cultivator, the hypocrite, that old coot. He's been 5 times a judge at Double Dragon gatherings, yet this is the first time I see him so biased. Ultimate Clarity Sect is the winner, and that's that. What's with that slightly better? Ha ha ha, Exalted Hey Ran chuckled. Exalted by Mei smiled. He meant to say that this was Zhuo Fan's win, but since it's a team battle, Ultimate Clarity Sect has 9 more members that are slightly better than Zhuo Fan's current state. That's why they won. He's clearly giving your demonic disciple some fame. Old-timer, I wasn't going to say he was siding with you, but you started it. Haha, being petty even after looking good. How is it looking good? When Zhuo Fan enters Double Dragon Manor, it will be the 2 of us who teach him. You're in it as well. Please. Exalted by Mei rolled his eyes and teased. He's a demonic cultivator. Right up your alley. My teachings to him can only be assistance. The one to truly learn from me can only be Yilin. He might have lost, but under my wing, he will soar. You better remember our deal then, old-timer. Of course, the 2 will fight again to see who's better. Exalted Hey Ran smiled. Exalted by Mei nodded. Good. We still don't know who among us is better after so many years, so we will let the disciples decide. Ha ha ha. The 2 burst out laughing. The judge saw the noise around him and raised his hand for silence. Western Land's Double Dragon gathering has now come to a close. Next comes tallying up the score for singles and team fights to assess the sect's ranks as well as see the 10 best disciples in Western Lands. The judge shouted with a cold gaze, making everyone's mood turn heavy. The Double Dragon gathering was over, and that meant settling the sect's future income and development. It affected the future of the disciples who came here as well. The judge looked at the 2 sect's disciples in stage and welcomed them. The assessment will take time, so you can step down to get some rest. The disciples cupped their hands before the judge before going to their group back to Demon Scheming Sect side. Kuei Lang put the wounded Zhuo Fan on a recliner to rest. Fiend Yang waltzed over with a grumbling look. Hey, Steward Zhuo, what the hell were you thinking? You won yet still passed on the reward? Do you have any idea just how much the top of the 9 sects earns? The other venerables sighed, feeling this rare chance slipping them by. Brother, you just let Ultimate Clarity Sect get their win without a care. But do you know how much it pains me? How much the sect lost? With this win, we might have gone from lower 3 sect to middle 3 sect, then to superior 3 sect, and then to heaven. Are you willing? Zhuo Fan mocked as he finished Fiend Yang's speech. Fiend Yang started. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes. The tallest tree gets the wind. Demon Scheming Sect was but a tiny lower 3 sect, yet it suddenly became the top dog? Don't you think that's highly dangerous? Fiend Yang's fat shook as they saw the implications. People must have self-awareness, as do sections. Without power to support such status, they'll crumble. Zhuo Fan squinted and looked at the judge, discussing with the gatekeepers about the score. In terms of Double Dragon Gathering's interests, I don't want it to get too high too fast in the Double Dragon Gathering. Wealth can be a burden. Demon Scheming Sect is too weak and can't take the pressure, becoming an easy target. Fiend Yang nodded. Right. I finally get that you thought about it a lot. We can't be the top sect, or it will be too dangerous. Just how can great venerables like us be so blind? For shame. Zhuo Fan, thank God you were the one in charge in this Double Dragon Gathering. Fiend Yang wiped his brow and sighed. The other venerables bobbed their heads. They could already see what would have happened after becoming the top of the totem pole. Assaulted from all directions, they also held Zhuo Fan in high esteem. No wonder sect leader gave him his badge. He made the right choice. The venerables' big picture couldn't hold a candle to a kid's. The 3 felt more ashamed now. The reason they followed Zhuo Fan so far was because of the badge. They never would have agreed to feeding the zombie pill to the disciple otherwise, but now, they were in full agreement with Zhuo Fan's actions. The more critical the situation became, the cooler Zhuo Fan was. His gaze looked farther than these old bags of bones who only had seniority on their side. Chapter 716. Future Allies and Enemies. Chapter 716, Future Allies and Enemies. Proofreader, Papatonks. At the center of the stage, the three elders were holding a silk sheet and were constantly writing and calculating the Sect's scores. All were watching with tense faces, however. That did not apply to the demon-scheming sect. They did not care much about those three oldies and swept the crowd. Juefan pointed out as he explained, "No one must become fat in one hall, or the consequences would not be worth the gain. In the Double Dragon Gathering, we have earned a good result, enough to support the sect's future and development for a long time. So, in the end, our ranking doesn't matter. What we need to focus on is doing that without outside interference. That depends on checks and balances between the major sects present here. That's where we need to focus. Getting to be an underdog in the Double Dragon Gathering for a huge reward is only a small part of our gain in this competition. The real win is getting friendly with the sections." Juefan's eyes flashed and pointed at each one. "Among the middle three sects, Demon Soul Sect owes us a favor and should be friendly. The Sword God Sect became friends through battle and should be a good ally. As for the superior three sects, although I heavily wounded Yilin, Wu Qingqiu is a man of honor and should be easy to get close to. Hellion Flame, by definition we have a little scuffle with them, but I don't see any hatred in Yin and Mo at us, so we can consider them neutral." Juefan then frowned as he decided with a sigh, "Hellion Flame can be approached." "What?" His team cried out. "Juefan, you almost killed Yin and Mo last time. How can we get close when he loathes us?" Juefan nodded and said, "That's called judging a book by its cover. Yes, Hellion Flame can be approached. While last time we fought, meeting Hellion Flame again, Yinamo and the others did not hate us, fighting us just like everyone else. Although I don't know why that happened, I am sure there's no bad blood between us anymore. They say love and hate are both sides of the same coin. If such deep hatred is resolved, we'll become even closer." Clapping, Juefan came to the last names. "There are 4 sects we need to befriend: Ultimate Clarity Sect, Hellion Flame, Sword God Sect, and Demon Soul Sect. They may very well help us avoid many troubles later on. But we only made friends with 4 disciples. It's not their venerables. How can they ask their sects to help us?" Kuei Gang asked hesitatingly. The others looked at Juefan for an answer. Juefan grinned, his eyes sparkling. "Ever heard of growing into one's role? That means becoming friends before they become big to help you later. Every participant here is but a disciple, but all are pillars of their sect, especially the ones returning alive. They will become eminent figures. All those old-timers back home are just going to offend these future big shots? As long as the sect's foundation ain't threatened, they will listen. Especially with Wu Qingqiu and Yilin. They can even decide the sect's future. That's why it's totally worth getting closer to them." "But what trouble could we possibly have?" Yuera frowned. Juefan shook his head and patted her head. "Lass, you really have holes for eyes. In these days of Double Dragon Gathering, haven't you realized how many toes we crushed? We need to keep our guard up around the Universal Righteous Sect, Heaven Trailing Sect, Mystical Heaven Sect, and Beast Taming Sect. As to why they hate us, I'm sure you can tell." "Sigh, if I knew this, I wouldn't have gone against them." Fiend Yang shook his head. "It's unclear if those new friends can be of help, but those 4 we really pissed them off. Nothing good will come of it." Juefan rolled his eyes and mocked, "You must be delusional. Joining the Double Dragon Gathering, you can offend anyone in the deathmatches. It's the only way to go forward. The question is who to offend and who to get close to. The good thing is the sects we chose are all stronger than our enemies and far more trustworthy. The Universal Righteous Sect, for instance, throws away its own people. Even if we hadn't messed with them, I still wouldn't want to get anywhere near them." The rest nodded in unison. "Moreover, there's no absolute neutrality in this world. There are allies and enemies. Absolute neutrality will only make you a target. That's why through these battles, I was choosing allies and your future enemies." "Us?" Everyone looked at Juefan in shock. Juefan grinned. "You're going to know this sooner or later, so I might as well tell you now. I've had a talk with the sect leader before coming here. After Double Dragon Gathering, I will be leaving the sect. What I say now is my last piece of advice for the labor office. Although I don't much care for the labor office, but I raised it and don't want to see it in danger of destruction. You will be the sect's future big shots and need to remember your allies and enemies. Otherwise, The demon scheming sect will crumble after it sticks out of the crowd. Wait, why are you leaving? You got all the credit for the double dragon gathering, and sect leader Rin will name you as the next. Fiend Yang cried. The others were anxious and nodded as well. Zhuofan might be a bit harsh, but without him, there wouldn't be a them. This made all of them appreciate him more. Zhuofan smiled and waved. You don't have to say it. I only came with the demon scheming sect because of a deal. Now that I have finished my part, it's time to head home. Home? They all looked at Zhuofan in shock as their hearts were overcome with sadness. Steward has his own home. He never saw the demon scheming sect as one. Fiend Yang sighed and nodded. Then we won't force the issue. But remember, from now on, you don't have just one home. All the disciples, elders, and venerables at the labor office won't ever forget you. No matter when you'll return, you'll always be Steward Zhua. The labor office never had a steward to begin with, but ever since Steward Zhua came, everyone always called you that. It sounds just like a clan's. Brothers should be closer, to stand united and repel outsiders. Yuling looked at him with a soft gaze. The others also cherished Zhuofan. Zhuofan's eyelids shook. He didn't care much for that place. He only saw it as a base to seize power. But he had to admit that he left something there after all, from helping Yuer and Kuei gang recover their cultivation, to establishing elite labor office, laughing at the inner sect. All of it did make the disciples gain self-respect and power. The labor office was a tight group now, no different from a home. But it was not what he yearned for. Zhuofan took a deep breath and smiled. His journey in the demon scheming sect had come to an end, and it wasn't such a bad trip either. The double dragon gathering scores have been set. Please check them. Exalted. The elders on the stage had finished, and they bowed as the judge declared exalted. Hey Ran took the silken sheet and nodded alongside exalted by May. The judge turned around at the 9 sects and shouted, the 9 sects ranks at the double dragon gathering have been set. Disciples, step on the stage to hear exalted's words. Yes. They all cupped their hands and assembled on the stage with hard looks. Even the heavily wounded Zhuofan was helped up. Who fell, who rose. All was written clearly on that thin silk sheet. Chapter 717. 9 Sects Positions. Chapter 717. 9 Sects Positions. Proofreader. Papatonks. Everyone looked up at the highest seats and at what exalted Hay Ran held with deep frowns, gulping and sweating in anxiety as their nails dug into their hands. Only the demon scheming sect was chill. They just didn't care about the ranks. Just like Zhuofan said, a weak sect like theirs shouldn't aim too high. Without high expectations, there was nothing to be tense about. They were more sad about their leader, Zhuofan, leaving them. I shall now declare the 9 sects positions in the double dragon gathering. Exalted Hay Ran cleared his throat. We begin with the beast-taming sect, the last in the lower 3 sects. Exalted Hay Ran's declaration earned a mocking look from the crowd at the start of the lower 3 sect stage. Zhuofan wiped them out in one punch. Even their elder was cold soon after. If they wasn't Deadliest, who would be? They were indeed shit out of luck to meet a freak like Zhuofan right off the bat. Zhuofan's power was soon made public in a fantastic display. Their demise obvious, haha. The last among the middle 3 sects. Exalted Hay Ran continued, and the people tuned in. Heaven Trailing Sect's young master was even more attentive. That was their spot since coming here. Though unclear if they kept it after all the changes, they were sweating now, eyes bloodshot. As they awaited Exalted Hay Ran to say those little words, it was never meant to be though. As Exalted Hay Ran said, Demon Soul Sect. The Han brothers shook their heads. They planned on moving up at least a spot, but ended up moving a spot backward. They had no idea how they were going to break this to their harsh old man while they were hesitating. Rin Tsong was frozen in place. If Demon Soul Sect got last place in the middle 3 sects, then Heaven Trailing Sect was in the lower 3 sects. The young master felt like crying. Getting home would get his dad to thrash him. How could we fall so low? The last among the superior 3 sects. Ignoring those 2 sects' sadness, Exalted Hay Ran kept on declaring, Sword God Sect. When Tao's team was stunned, then went wild with joy. They actually upgraded their class. From middle 3 sect to superior 3 sect, they thought that by losing to Zhuofan and being wounded in the challenge stage, they lost their chance. Now, it seemed that they did it even if it was the last spot. It was still worth an achievement. Zhuofan's side stuck to their ally-making policy and congratulated them. When Tao kept cupping his hands in reply with a beaming smile, though one sect's fortune was another's sadness. Universal Righteous Sect's Zhao Dazhu was dumbstruck. For Sword God's sect to go up, one had to go down. As to who that was, it went without saying that it was the weakest. Zhao Dazhu's lip shivered. Feeling endless sadness, this was the worst performance in all Double Dragon gatherings. How was he going to explain it back home? Looking aside, Exalted He Ran showed a mocking smile as he continued. Lower 3 sects mid-position, Mystical Heaven Sect. Xin Xiaoyu and the Elder eased a breath. This was the usual result, at least, though they failed to be the first lower 3 sect. The girls didn't care much about it. Those glistening pairs of eyes only watched Zhuofan, as if the demon scheming sect spot was far more important. Middle 3 sect's second spot, Universal Righteous Sect. Exalted He Ran looked right at Zhao Dazhu when he shouted. The crowd was in an uproar. A great superior 3 sect had not only fallen from grace, but went down to ranks. The Universal Righteous Sect's elders were bound to go mad from the news. While the people did not know if they would, they did hear Zhao Dazhu go insane first as he argued. Hold on, Exalted. What is this? Universal Righteous Sect is a superior 3 sect. How did it fall so much? Humph. You should be asking your scheming mind. Exalted He Ran disdained. When you fought Hellion Flame and Ultimate Clarity Sect, you always held back. So much so you earned little points. In the Superior 3 Sects Challenge stage, you routed Demon Scheming Sect, but in the end, your score dropped to rock bottom, earning your current rank as second Middle 3 Sect. Zhao Dazhu shook like a leaf, his butt hitting the ground hard from shock. How can this be? The points for fighting in the Superior 3 Sect singles are far more than in the other categories. How? You're right, but that's because the Superior 3 Sect's disciples are much stronger. But that only means by forfeiting the deduction is even greater. Exalted by May's eyes were sharp as he said flatly, your great scheming has brought you this low. I hope that as a second Middle 3 Sect you and your sect will calm down and focus on your path and not scheme for fame and wealth. As you know, scheming comes with risks. If it fails, you're the one to suffer for it. Zhao Dazhu sat there on the ground, lost. Not even hearing his advice, the Exalted shook their heads and Exalted He Ran continued. Superior 3 sects mid-position, Hellion Flame. Yinamo nodded and eased a breath. At least they kept their spot. They were really scared the Demon Scheming Sect would have taken it, and now it's time to announce the top positions. Exalted He Ran finally came to the final 3 names. The crowd went quiet and waited with bated breaths. Lower 3 sects top position, Heaven Trailing Sect. Exalted He Ran's shout pierced Rinsong's ears. He had seen it coming, but it still came as a blow. He was shaking so hard. The breeze might topple him. It was too much for him to take in the end. He chose to glare at Zhuofan. It's all that punk's fault. I won't ever let you go. Just wait, you'll get yours. Rinsong's eyes flashed as he started making his plans. Middle 3 sects, top position, Demon Scheming Sect. Exalted He Ran finally uttered the greatest underdog's name, but the gang were all smiles that threw the crowd off. Even the Exalted were curious. They got such restraint. They were clearly something more to keep their cool after hearing they went from lower 3 sects to top Middle 3 sects. Or was it the least of their expectations, since they aimed for Superior 3 sects? How would they know the Demon Scheming Sect team's mood was more affected by Zhuofan's leaving? Zhuofan had got them all the way here without a scratch. Now that he left, they couldn't be happy even if they wanted to. Shrugging, the Exalted scratched their heads. Exalted He Ran declared the last spot. Superior 3 sects, top position, Ultimate Clarity Sect. The king in the Western lands, Ultimate Clarity Sect, had never fallen off his throne. But everyone, even Ultimate Clarity Sect, were clear how dangerous it was to maintain it, giving Zhuofan a long look. Wu Qingqiu sighed. I hope the next Double Dragon gathering we won't meet that freak again. Wu Qingqiu wiped his brow, recalling the fight. The 9 sects now had their new status. What followed next was what they were waiting for. The share of sacred stones the Double Dragon Manor bestowed at Double Dragon Gathering. Exalted He Ran sat down and Exalted by May began. According to Double Dragon Gathering's results, the sacred stones shall be split as follows. The top Superior 3 Sect, Ultimate Clarity Sect, will receive 100,000, the Hellion Flame 50,000, and Sword God Sect 30,000. Everyone was shocked. So much? Only the elders that had been to past Double Dragon gatherings shook their heads. Much? That goes to the winner. Double Dragon Manor ain't so generous to losers. Does Mystical Heaven Sect think so as well? Rinsong glanced over with a vague smile as he spoke. Elder Yun picked up on something and probed. Young Master Run already has a plan? Humph, not mine. Someone already has his eye on that punk, waiting for the right moment. When the time comes, I hope Mystical Heaven Sect will join us and not run away. Elder Yun shook and frowned. He only wanted to comfort the young master of the top 3 guardian sects and get them to push down the speedy growth of the demon-scheming sect. However, he never thought the Heaven-trailing sect already had a plan to deal with him and wanted the Mystical Heaven Sect to join them. Just what are they planning? If it gets out of hand, Double Dragon Manor will step in and Heaven-trailing sect will be finished. Mystical Heaven Sect didn't want to go down as well. Elder Yun frowned as he pondered. Rinsong saw his hesitation and said, No worries, I know what you're afraid of. Double Dragon Manor doesn't want Western Lands' power to drop and is on the lookout for any conflict between sections. But you should know not everyone's house affairs are so easily settled. You mean? Elder Yun was stunned. Rinsong cast a nasty look at Zhua Fan as he smiled eerily. Even in Demon Scheming Sect, not everyone took a liking to this punk. When the time comes, the Demon Scheming Sect would fail its duties so much, the Exalted can't do anything. Unless they don't want to lead the Western Lands. Elder Yun pondered and nodded. Next are the individual scores in the Double Dragon, gathering for the best 10 disciples in Western Lands, and their rewards. Exalted by Mei and Exalted He, Rand spoke up. The people turned solemn and eager. Yenemo, Xie Tianshang, and the other competitive ones were looking forward to it as well. Exalted He, Rand stood up and spoke. In this Double Dragon gathering, the 10th disciple in Western Lands is 3rd Young Master Han from Demon Soul Sect. 100 sacred stones. 3rd Young Master Han was stunned. He never thought he'd be among the ranking. Exalted He Ran continued. The 9th place goes to 2nd Young Master Han, 200 sacred stones. The brothers shouted in joy. They both made it and now had a chance of getting into Double Dragon Manor. The 8th place goes to Ransong, 300 sacred stones. 7th place, Xie Tianshang, 400. 6th place, Han Yunfeng, 500. 5th place, Wen Tao, 600. 4th place, Zhao Dezhu, 700. 3rd place, Yinemo, 800. 2nd place, Wu Qingqiu, 900. 1st place. Exalted He Ran paused for effect, getting everyone excited. The 2 strongest in this Double Dragon gathering were Zhua Fan and Yilin, but none of their names was among those 9 places. Did Yilin die? Is that why Exalted He Ran didn't announce him? The people started looking dejected at this though and sighed. So young and so strong. What a shame. Then again, it's all his bad luck's fault for meeting one worse than himself. There's always someone stronger out there. Exalted He Ran continued. At long last. 1st place Yilin, 1,000 sacred stones. What? At this news, the crowd was aboil. Then confused eyes focused on Zhua Fan. Why didn't the final winner get a spot as well but the loser did? Does the Double Dragon Manor have some shady agenda for the Double Dragon gathering? But this is too shady. You think we're so blind we can't see the outcome? They recalled how Exalted He Ran rescued Yilin, and they started making wild guesses that Yilin had something to do with the Exalted to be shielded, thus forcing the best in Western Lands, Zhua Fan, to be a crownless king. From the moment Yilin fell, everyone saw Zhua Fan as the number 1. Even if he wasn't officially recognized, everyone saw him as such. All looked at the Exalted Double Dragons with doubt and suspicion. What strings are you pulling here? Chapter 719. Challenge. Chapter 719. Challenge. Proofreader. Papatonks. The Exalted shared a look, knowing what they were thinking. The Double Dragon Manor, which was renowned for being fair for thousands of years, was now facing everyone's doubts because of one brat. They had to work hard to build up their image, only for it to collapse in an instant before they could even explain why. This only showed just how much Zhua Fan grew in their eyes. Such charisma had the Exalted appreciating him more. Exalted, Why isn't Zhuo Fan among the top 10 disciples? Wu Qingqiu bowed and asked. The crowd grew noisier as their doubts mounted. Exalted He Ran didn't say it. It is double dragon manners rule. Exalted He Ran made it so no one could challenge his decision again. None wanted to offend the strongest in Western lands, is it? However, Wu Qingqiu smiled, bowing again. Since it's double dragon manners rule, I won't pry, but I ask Exalted to take down Yilin's and my name as well. What? The crowd was speechless from shock. Wu Qingqiu continued, Exalted, I just don't want my name to be on a meaningless ranking. I wouldn't want to disgrace double dragon manners rankings. With junior brother's temper, I think he will want the same. So you mean our ranking was unfair and dishonors you? Exalted He Ran growled. The anger the crowd felt caused them to shiver. Wu Qingqiu shook his head, but the meaning was obvious. Ha ha ha, Exalted. How can a disciple from the Ultimate Clarity Sect say something like that? I just felt junior brother and I will only dishonor double dragon manners ranking by being on it. If it's possible, I hope that we are taken off. The crowd gasped as to the meaning. This kid is being sarcastic, saying that Zhuo Fan isn't on the list, and so he doesn't want to be on it either. By saying he dishonors the ranking, he is criticizing it for being unfair and doesn't want to stay on it. The people showed endless admiration for Wu Qingqiu's courage to speak up against the exalted. Zhuo Fan felt the same. Just like I thought. Wu Qingqiu is worth befriending. Ha ha ha, since none want to, then I'll be the first in Western lands. Then came sudden laughter that caught everyone's attention. It was Yinamo giving Wu Qingqiu and Zhuo Fan a vile smile. Yinamo shrugged. However, being called a king among these people is so boring. It's better I step out as well. Without a worthy opponent, I'd only slack off and get further and further behind. Ha ha, brother Yinamo is mocking everyone else. You can look down on anyone, but not the younger generation. We, the Sword God Sect, are the last among the superior 3 sects, and next time we will take your place. Don't you run away. Why don't we run together? When Tao joined the bustle, Xie Tianshang, Han Yunfeng and others renounced their spots for Zhuo Fan. The people saw for the first time how so many were against double dragon manners decision. Even the exalted didn't see it coming. This showed how much charisma Zhuo Fan had. They only met for a few days, yet these 4 great sects disciples were on his side. The exalted smiled in appreciation. In those days, Sheng only gained recognition through power, but now this kid was truly the best in Western lands. Exalted He Ran raised his hand for silence. He spoke calmly, only far more relaxed than before. There's a reason why Zhuo Fan isn't on the 10 best disciples in Western lands. One is Double Dragon Gatherings rule, based on single matches that evaluate your skills. In these matches, Zhuo Fan only fought in the lower 3 sections. So no matter how amazing he is, his points are lacking. Of course, his outstanding display in the last challenge team battle showed otherwise. It's even reasonable to break this rule and have him on the rankings. But, what? Everyone asked. Exalted He Ran shook his head. The 10 disciples in Western lands is something we decided on, with Zhuo Fan having exceeded our evaluation. In other words, we can't appraise his strength. Just that last strike of his injured his opponent even as I interfered. One can say that even I lost to him. Though it is a matter of being careful, Exalted exaggerates. Zhuo Fan immediately cupped his hands. Exalted He Ran smiled. It's fine. We both know our own strengths, yet to wound someone with me around is already incredible. That is why we have lost the means to judge you. Ah, youths, you have your pride and beliefs, but so do we. Zhuo Fan didn't make it on the list, not because he's unworthy, but because he's gone beyond it. That is why we decided, for the first time in millennia, to add one more rank to this list. Rank 0, the Crownless King, Zhuo Fan. It means no one can grant him a title or reward it to him. As for Sacred Stones, 2000. The crowd went slack-jawed. Incredulous, the exalted double dragons admitted they couldn't judge a disciple. They even went as far as making a new rank just for him. The kid will definitely grow strong under the care of the 2 exalted. The crowd looked at Zhuo Fan, the future best in Western lands that had been recognized by the exalted. In shock, Wu Qingqiu and the others looked happy, as if Zhuo Fan's glory was only natural, but Zhuo Fan did not care, only making small talk with some just to get closer. As for Xian Xiaoyu, Rensong and others, their faces fell seeing Zhuo Fan look so proud. They all turned to Lu Xie with sharp eyes. Best in Western lands? Humph. I'll make sure you never live to reach it. Everyone calm down now. Exalted by May stood up with a smile, clearing his voice. Exalted by May began. The double dragon gathering is over, with all the sect's ranks being decided. The disciples may return home. As for the disciples that enter the double dragon manor, we will need some time to debate. I will then send a jade slip to notify each sect leader. You are now free to leave. Boom. Exalted by May got cut off by a huge explosion, making everything shake. The Exalted cried out, "The sacred mine. Start the monitoring array and see what's happening." Exalted Hey Ran cried out at the gatekeepers. The two elders made the signs, and a screen formed to reveal a long mountain range, with an old man with a red nose hovering at the end of it with a dark look. The gulf half a mile around him was there for the audience to see as well. Just what kind of power can cause this destruction? Dancing Sean. The Exalted knew on the spot that this guy was challenging them.